building, and the wind just whipped us in the face. My daughters were like, we need to walk backwards. I'm like, no, we need to just get the hell home. That's what we need to do. Get back in the heated house thanks to the folks that love heating and air conditioning. But yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Look at that.
Hey, you're a pro.
I know. I'm such a sleaze. No, but yeah, we got the hell out of it. We were so cold. My daughter's like, can we go outside and play? I'm like, absolutely not. There was zero chance I'm going out there. So we ended up going to like an indoor playground or something, but we were not going outside once we got indoors because that was not happening. So anyway, a busy night in sports as we turn the page to what we should be talking about is sports. A big night. The Pacers return to action. What a hell of a return. I feel like the All-Star break did a body good for the Pacers because the scoring drought that we were seeing heading into the All-Star break, that seemed to have vanished. Miles Turner back in action. He had a nice roll. 7 Pacers in double digits last night as their 127-113 winners over the Memphis Grizzlies. That was good to see. Miles Turner, 17 points, 10 boards, 7 blocks. That was very nice. That was much needed. Tyrese Halliburton had 22 points, 9 assists. Benedict Mathurin off the bench with 16. So that was a very solid effort, especially on this crucial 4-game stretch starting post-All-Star break. That was a good one to see last night. And you were out there, weren't you?
Yeah. Got to watch the first half, and then went back home to watch the Four Nations and get some rest for today.
We'll get to that shortly.
No, it was cool to be in the building because it was also Purdue alumni heritage night. So what a night to welcome back Zach Edey. When he got introduced in that starting lineup for Memphis, and Troy Pepper, the PA announcer for the Indiana Pacers, obviously for the opponent, here is the starting lineup for the Memphis Grizzlies. At guard, John Morant. At guard, Desmond Bane. He gave Zach Edey a little bit more, of a boost. But the welcome back and the applause that Zach Edey got, it felt like you were in Mackey Arena. But to your point, Mark, about a 50-point second quarter, piecing it together towards the back end of that first half, kind of a tale of 2 quarters there to start, though. Because you start the game 1 of 10 from 3. Miles Turner in 6 minutes on the court went 0 of 4 on threes. He was really bricking everything, and I think it just got to a point where Miles was being a little too aggressive. Thomas Bryant came on the floor, provided you some good minutes in that first quarter off the bench at center. But then Miles came back in, and actually one moment stuck out because for whatever reason, I still had my eyes on the court as a timeout was called. There was a ball, there was an offensive foul. Miles Turner got the ball in the corner, put up a 3, hit the shot, didn't count, and then he went back to the bench. Thomas Bryant came in. Miles hit his next 2 triples. So he just saw one go in, and that changed the complexion of that first half in my mind because you start 1 of 10 from 3. Benedict Mathurin bangs one in. The next guy to hit a 3 was TJ McConnell.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever seen, when you play 2K, you can get the adaptability of having the microwave as a player.
Yep.
I've never seen an entire team have a microwave effect. You see one go in more than the Pacers. For whatever reason, this team is so closely together that they see one go in, everybody else gets hot because Miles can't buy a 3, makes 2 in a row. You go off for 50 points in that second quarter. Huge win.
It is just wild, the state of the NBA right now, that the Pacers shot 45 3-pointers, and the Grizzlies had 39. There was 84 3-pointer attempts in the game last night. It's
incredible.
Insane. It's just a wild thing. I know a lot of people don't like it because obviously they think Steph Curry did have a role in it, but the fact that people are just dropping back and throwing up shots left and right and everything where it's just it's this 3-pointer after 3-pointer, 84 3-pointers in the game last night.
There was a point in that first quarter when the Pacers were 1 of 10 from 3. I noticed it. 4 Pacers were around the 3-point line. The closest Pacer to the bucket was Miles at the free throw line.
Yeah.
And Nembhard took a 3 from the top of the key, missed. They got an offensive board, missed another 3. Yeah, so no, if you are not a fan of the NBA, put it up from half court. That first quarter was not one that you wanted to watch. However, the second quarter when they started going in, everybody's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun one last night. Great to see the Pacers get a win there. Obviously, we'll be breaking that down all show long. We do have a busy show today. It's rare that we have a guest that gets on before Greg Rakestraw. Greg Rakestraw usually our staple at 8 o'clock on Fridays. Alan Karpik of goldenblack.com. He's going to check in with us at 7:40. Obviously, a huge one on Sunday at Assembly Hall with Purdue taking on Indiana. So we'll talk to him about that. We also have Greg Rakestraw, of course, at 8 o'clock. And then Zach Osterman of the Indy Star going to give us the IU side of things. Obviously, tons of stuff to dive in with Zach. He will join us around 9:05 on this show as well. Plus, we have a freebie Friday. That's always fun. And, of course, we have to get into it last night. The other thing that was going on outside of Pacers-Grizzlies, the Four Nations Championship. Unfortunately, Canadians get the best of the U.S. 3-2 in overtime, but it was a thriller last night. I was locked into my television set. Connor McDavid gets the game winner in overtime. Boys, I know you both watched as well. Your thoughts?
For the game of hockey won last night.
Yep.
And congrats to Canada. I had a feeling it was going to OT. I told Scotty J in the studio yesterday, this thing's going to OT, and it did. Shades of 2010, and it kind of felt almost as Sidney Crosby had the golden goal in 2010, passes it to Connor McDavid for the golden goal in 2025. Incredible hockey game. I think really there were two things that changed the tide of the game. A, Cale Makar playing for Canada. That dude is the best puck-moving defenseman in the National Hockey League. And number two, and unfortunately this could impact my Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk only playing 6 minutes into the second period, stayed on the bench, clearly going through something. He was injured in that previous game. Seems to be something with his groin. But still, the endless saves that Jordan Binnington made for Team Canada. And also Connor Hellebuck was also fantastic for Team USA in goal. I mean, there were so many chances, Mark, that could have gone in. But as mentioned, a tournament that probably started and needed some convincing for most people that it wasn't just a glorified all-star game. It wasn't just a glorified all-star game. These were these guys playing for their country, and it looked like a raucous environment in Boston. So congratulations to the Canadians.
Oh, yeah, without question. Corbin, you watched last night. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yes, I did, and I am not a hockey guy. I've never really watched a game of hockey, and I was gut-wrenched at the end of that game. And I had no players in that game.
Yeah. So you had to take a walk afterwards. He was that upset. I know that was kind of a gut punch when you're like, oh, we almost had him. But that was that atmosphere in TD Garden last night, that was electric. Canada gets out to the early start with the goal, and Canadians are loving it. Kind of like, come on, U.S., let's get back on track. And then, they tied it up and everything. It was good stuff there. Goalies were phenomenal. There were some saves in that game where I'm just like, no way in hell, if you gave me 1,000 attempts, could I ever make anything remotely close to what those guys were doing. They were just standing on their heads at points, especially in the overtime. It was just a thrilling atmosphere. I mentioned it on Twitter. I don't know how many regular hockey fans watch versus casual fans, but if you're a casual fan, I don't know how you come away from that and you didn't love every second of it. I don't know how you couldn't have been locked in emotionally. I don't know how you didn't enjoy the action that was on the ice last night. If you're a casual fan, I don't know how you walk away from that and say, well, that stinks. I get it, U.S. didn't win. But if you came across that game, you're like, that wasn't very exciting, then I don't know what to tell you.
It's the most unique sport in the world, and I grew up with the sport. It's been a part of my life for 30 years. But this is what I told Corbin when I walked in the studio today. I meet somebody on a weekly to monthly basis when I try and talk to them about the game. It's I just can't get into it. I don't know any players. I don't know the rules. You didn't have to know what offside and icing was in last night's game to enjoy that. The whistle blows. Oh, okay. It's a stoppage. Here's a face-off. That's all you need to know. That's it. You didn't have to know what icing was. You didn't have to know what offsides was. The game of hockey won last night. And, Mark, I didn't have it on my 2025 bingo card. I did not have it on my 2025 bingo card that the NHL forcing the NBA's hand to do something different to get their popularity up to where we are now. It was a successful Four Nations tournament.
Well, yeah, somebody mentioned a couple of weeks ago, one of the listeners was like, are you going to watch the Four Nations? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I didn't even know what it was at the time because I just never heard of it. And I feel like I'm a hockey guy, but I've kind of checked out a little bit just because the Blackhawks, which I root for, are not very good right now. They're not available on local TV anywhere. They stink.
Even in Chicago.
Yeah, so I've kind of checked out as far as like watching hockey regularly. So when someone mentioned Four Nations, I assumed, I was like, oh, this must be like a pickleball tournament or something. No, it was the NHL's version of the All-Star game. I loved it. I got locked in like everybody else. Again, and it re-engaged my love for the hockey sport. So I loved it. If you missed it last night, here is the game winner of Connor McDavid last night on ESPN.
Matthews, one of the best in the league. McDavid under 50% for the regular season. But he won 12 out of 14 in their opener, and he won that one and got a shot off. Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada!
Unbelievable. The great Sean McDonough, friend of the show, Sean McDonough on the call last night. That was just an amazing atmosphere. Again, I can't wait to see what the ratings are for that because I feel like everyone, I feel like Twitter, obviously social media, you'll get in like kind of like your own like niche audience and everything. But it seemed like, from what I could tell, a lot of people were watching that game last night. I saw USA, Canada flags all over Twitter. Hashtags were flying all over the place. So I'll be very curious to see. It was the perfect storm for the NHL that they fell into U.S. Canada in the championship, because I can't imagine if Finland Sweden would have somehow made it to the championship, would have done the same thing. U.S. Canada, a natural rivalry. What an atmosphere last night, and I cannot wait for them to do it again. And obviously the Olympics coming up as well. It is going to be fun, but a huge night for hockey.
That's exactly the point, because this is just the start of it all, because you're going to have the Olympics next year. We'll see if Russia is let back in. I mean, that, of course, has its own political climate to talk about. But if you're going to have the best on best, you got to have the Russians in there, regardless of what's happening in the world. But also, the World Cup of Hockey in 2028, that's going to come your way. It's going to be another one of these tournaments. So the NHL is doing it right. I do have some family in Canada, Mark, up in London, Ontario. So got some text from them this morning, kind of rubbing it in my face after I did the same to them after the first Canada-U.S. game. But it's all in good spirits. And, again, great call by Sean McDonough. Great atmosphere in Boston. Got to love it for a great game.
Canadian sports radio is lit this morning, I can only imagine. They probably haven't even gone to sleep
Oh, they're
yet.
Drinking their maple syrup, and they're saying, hey,
Yeah,
we got
Molson's, all that stuff, a little bats. Anyway, good for them. Congrats to Canada, but it was a fun Four Nations. I loved every second of it. So we'll dive more into that later. Did you watch? Were you a casual fan and check into the Four Nations? Were you locked in as well? 317-239-1070. I am curious about that. We'll break down more Pacers Grizzlies. The NFL Combine is just days away from descending on Indianapolis. We've got that. We've got Purdue and IU on Sunday. And there was a Carb Day announcement last night on JMV's show. We'll get into that as well. Your thoughts. Again, Alan Carpet, Greg Rakestraw, Zach Osterman also joining us. It is a busy, busy Friday show. It's the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykton, Brendan King, Corbin Lingenfelter, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. It's morning checkdown time on this Friday on the Fan Morning Show. Let's start local with the Pacers. Got back in action and came up 127-113 winners over the Grizzlies last night. 7 Pacers in double figures, including a returning Miles Turner, who had 17 points, 10 boards, 7 blocks. After the game, Miles Turner talked about his first game back.
It was a little difficult at first. You're trying to find your legs, mentally, and you miss a few shots, and you kind of get down on yourself. But I got to give a lot of credit to literally everybody on the bench. I kind of started to get in my own head a little bit, and everybody says, yo, keep shooting. You're a 40% shooter for a reason. Shoot the ball. From the coaching staff down to the end of the bench. Everybody encouraged me to keep shooting. So, it really kind of picked up my own spirit, and, I knew I needed to lock in, in that second quarter, and I was able to do just that.
A great return for Turner. How's he feeling now that he's got one game under his belt?
I was gassed, bro. I'm not going to lie. I think that it's kind of a mind over matter. I think we've been doing this long enough to know that, if you're in between the 4 lines, don't nobody care how you feel. So, I was able to turn myself up to another level. I think I just kind of put it all to the fact that I knew we had 2 days to rest and just leave it all out on the floor. So, it wasn't easy, but, it's, we don't get paid to go out there and do it easy.
Now, you stayed for the half, Brendan. You saw kind of a weird start to the game, kind of a slow start for the Pacers before they went off for 50 points in the second quarter. That was pretty impressive. I was like,
yeah,
that's a lot of points for any team. 50 points in one quarter, my goodness.
No, tell 2 quarters, Mark, where you start 1 of 10 from 3. Miles missed his first 4 shots, as he mentioned in that clip, but you go 0 of 4 from 3 in 6 minutes. The crowd was kind of getting on him a little bit, not going to lie. I mean, being up in that media seating, you can hear a lot of things from the crowd, and they put Thomas Bryant in. Miles is able to go back to the bench, as he mentioned, reset a little bit there, and then he made his next 2 after a practice 3 that went in. So I think it's been a complimentary pair if you look at last night, Bryant and Turner, for what they can do going on and off the court together. I really like that.
Rick Carlisle was asked after the game, what changed from quarter 1 to quarter 2?
I loved the process, and we were getting great looks. And, the first 8-10 minutes of a 48-minute NBA game is nothing. And if you are doing things well process-wise, you got to keep doing them well. And so, in the timeout, in the first quarter, I said to the guys, hey, listen, first game out of the break, there's going to be some misses, but we're getting great shots, and just keep stepping into them. And if you don't step into them, you're coming out of the game.
It's back-to-backs for the Pacers starting on Sunday. They host the Clippers, followed by the Nuggets on Monday. So a couple Titans coming to town on Monday and Sunday and Monday.
Somebody's got to send that clip of the process to Joel Embiid, because then he'll definitely want to come to Indiana.
I'd rather retire. That's what he would say.
Well, I mean, he loves the process, though,
he loves
right?
the process.
So
I don't think
just send that clip of Rick, and he's hopping on a plane.
He loves the process. He doesn't love Indianapolis. That's what we've made clear. So again, Sunday for the Pacers against the Clippers, followed by Monday against the Nuggets. So busy couple days coming up for the Pacers.
Huge stretch, and you'll see, again, we talked about it yesterday. If you can split this 4-game stretch, that's great. You take 3. I mean, that's fantastic.
Solid start so far. 4 Nations Championship last night. Canada tops the United States 3-2 in overtime. Connor McDavid with the game winner. That was, again, just a thrilling atmosphere. I don't know how you could have hated it. I know that the USA came up short, but that was just an awesome game.
It's just refreshing to see a group of athletes that want to play for something that's bigger than themselves. Unfortunately, too much in sports today, we see the complete opposite of that. Mm-hmm. And the best part, as we talked about last segment, Mark, is this is the start of many, because for the first time in years, NHL players are going to get to play in the Olympics next year, and then 2028, it'll be the World Cup of Hockey. So you have, at the very least, 2 of these tournaments left where these NHL players are going to go at it, and you're going to welcome in even more countries in the Olympics.
I can't wait. And huge win for the NHL. None of those players took their foot off the gas last night. No one pushed in their chips and said, I'm done. Everybody was just balls to the wall from the beginning of the
end. You have to keep in mind, the NHL returns tomorrow.
Yeah.
The All-Star break's over tomorrow. So a lot of these guys, and I would imagine many of them, are going to get some time off. And like I said, it's worrisome for a Florida Panthers fan like myself. Matthew Tkachuk seems like he may have to miss some time. But, a lot of those guys, you talk about Miles being gassed in the first game after the All-Star break. I mean, those guys just went hard for 2 weeks. And don't forget, they were practicing and traveling in the middle of that. So the NHL returns tomorrow. There's no excuses there. I'm sure many of them, again, will get a game or 2 off, but they're going to have to play hockey next week.
Hockey players are built different, man. That's what it is. They
get some chicken parm and rice, and you're good. That's it.
Unbelievable. Quiet night in college hoops. It's pretty much quiet weekend in college hoops until we roll the calendar to tomorrow. Butler visits DePaul. That's an 8 o'clock on FS1 for the men. For the women at Hinkle, a huge one coming up. They host UConn tomorrow. Might want to keep your ears open if you're interested in possibly going to that game. I'm just laying some hints out there. You might want to be listening a little later in the show. We might have something for you if it comes to wanting to hang out at Hinkle Fieldhouse on Saturday and see the UConn women come to town. Nothing
better than a day at Hinkle. Gino bringing his Huskies in, and maybe your last opportunity to see Paige Beckers at Hinkle Fieldhouse as well.
Lots of reasons to want to hang out at Hinkle on Saturday. Again, you might want to be listening. Other than that, I don't really have much outside of that we saw some baseball. The Cubs and Dodgers played. I watched a little bit, but there was a scary scene where one of the Dodgers pitchers took a liner to the head.
Bobby Miller.
That was scary. And then we saw the first challenge in a game of the balls and strikes. You can challenge now. So that was
Cody Poteet. Shout out to him. They got him in a trade from the Yanks. And it was cool for me as a broadcaster in the Cubs minor league system. Good chunk of that Cubs lineup yesterday are former South Bend Cubs. Guys like Kevin Alcantara and James Triantos and others, and some pitchers that got in the game were former South Bend Cubs. So, hey, a good start. It was kind of funny to see the discrepancy in what the Cubs were trying to do compared to what the Dodgers were trying to do. The Cubs start, and this is nothing against Cody Poteet. He's a wonderful person. But the Cubs started Cody Poteet, and he's likely going to be a bullpen piece for this year. The Dodgers start Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Is this not Game 1 of the World Series, or what's going on here? But no, that was super scary. Bobby Miller, thank God he got up right away and obviously left the game. But yeah, it's a 106-mile-an-hour Michael Busch liner coming towards your noggin, and that's scary.
That'll get you ready for spring training. All I heard there was basically that if you cross paths with Brendan King, you're set for the lineups. You're going to the majors pretty quickly.
Yeah.
All right, he's Brendan King. I'm Mark Dykton. Corbin is on the ones and twos. Lots to get into, including IU Purdue coming up on the other side. We will touch base with Alan Karpick of GoldenBlack.com. Get the Purdue side of things. We'll also talk to Greg Rakestraw, 8 o'clock, and Zach Osterman at around 9:05. And again, you want to be listening possibly for some information on that Butler women's game against UConn coming up on Saturday. It's the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykton, Brendan King, Corbin Lingenfelter, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. This is another good one, Corbin. You are banging them out on these rejoinders, knocking out some big hits out here. Fan Morning Show on this Friday morning. We will talk to Alan Karpik of goldenblack.com in a few minutes. But before then, obviously, again, Pacers got back in action last night. Nice win against the Memphis Grizzlies. 7 Pacers in double digits. Pacers scored 50 points in the second quarter. A nice game there. Miles Turner returned to the lineup. That was a nice boost for them as well. And Brendan King was in attendance to take it all in. You left now after the 50-point showing?
Yeah, I usually like to go and watch the first half live, and then if there's something else going on or I have a show the next day, head out, watch the third and fourth quarter from home. So that's exactly the case. I had to go watch the Four Nations. I was going to ask, by the way, you complimenting Corbin's musical style from producer to producer, is that like head chef to sous chef saying, hey, I really like the way the sauce in this dish, you know?
It is, yeah. Like, I don't think that needs any more flavor. I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's perfection.
Kiss.
That's producer to producer right there. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
But no, I actually, you know what? I asked Scott Agnes yesterday about Obi Toppin, because you can really call that game in Washington at the end of the day the Obi Toppin game before the All-Star break. He was the only one with energy. He was the guy that got you back in the game when you were down 19 against the Wizards in D.C. You cut it to 16. You mount that comeback. Obi Toppin really reignited that game. And if not, you are waiting this long up until last night with the loss on your belt to the Wizards. Ugh.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because like Obi Toppin heading into the trade deadline, you're like, well, I don't know if the Pacers are going to make a move, but Obi Toppin would be a guy that could possibly be on the move. And you have to think that had they moved him, what would the Pacers look like right now if Obi Toppin was not on this roster anymore?
A team with a lot less energy, for sure. I mean, he goes for 12 points last night, but in 20 minutes, you're a plus 10 when you're having to guard a Ja Morant, when you're having to deal with a Zach Edey on the floor. And by the way, I mean, Edey could not have started the game better against Miles Turner. He got 4 consecutive misses from Turner. Zach Edey made his own 3. My guy stepped into a 3 from the top of the key and made it. The crowd went insane. You would have thought you were at Mackey Arena. When we talked with Alan Karpik, if he heard that reaction, Alan would have thought he was at Mackey, because the crowd obliterated into just applause, and it was incredible. So Zach Edey could not have started the game better. He only had 5 points, did pull down 11 rebounds, but the way that Miles got back into the game, as he mentioned during the morning check down, and I really think Thomas Bryant has given you some quality minutes here, Mark.
He's
16 minutes, 6 minutes, Energizer Bunny. Between him, Toppin, and then this sounds kind of silly, but James Johnson on the bench is first team all vibes. He keeps them going, and he plays, I think, a bigger role than most people think.
He's like an emotional leader for sure.
Just in terms of being the glue guy.
He's an emotional leader, and he's an enforcer.
Everybody, yeah. Even when you're not on the floor, he's keeping that bench composed. I don't know if I've ever, and I think a theme of the Pacers, at least in my time being around here, is other than actually starting after the year where Nate Bjorkgren was the head coach. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
After that year, I never got a vibe that this team ever disliked each other. I have gotten the vibe every single year that even with guys coming in, guys going out, this is a close-knit group, and that doesn't happen all the time anymore, especially in this league with so much drama and so much toxicity. The Pacers are a different vibe.
Yeah, I mean, they're posting videos of, the team popping champagne because Pascal Siakam is named an all-star reserve and everything like that. Like, it does seem natural that Rick Carlisle and the boys are just having a good time, and they all get along with each other, and it's just what you see is what you get. It's not fabricated. It's all legit.
Yeah.
It's good to see. So again, a busy couple of games coming up for the Pacers. Some monsters coming to town. We got the Clippers on Sunday night, and then the Nuggets, Nikola Jokic in town on Monday. So a couple of big games coming the Pacers' way. So it'll be interesting to see, can they keep up this nice hot start from post All-Star break.
Well,
they could use it.
Miles Turner, I mean, get on the treadmill, do some extra walking, because if you got to get ready to
gassed.
Yeah, if you got to get ready to guard Jokic,
yeah.
I mean, that is not a take a couple possessions off type of thing. I mean, my guy, Nikola Jokic looks like he's first team all, practice gym, but he'll go out there and he'll burn you. So
it's probably tough to play him on a regular day, but playing him on the second game of back-to-back, that's going to be a tall order.
That doesn't sound too fun.
On Monday night.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens there. We are going to turn the page to the Purdue and IU game in just a few minutes. We're going to talk to Alan Karpik shortly. We'll also get some Colts discussion as well. Obviously, the NFL Combine coming to town in just a matter of days. I cannot wait. We talked to Claire Clark last night from Visit Indy. She was outstanding, getting us set for the Combine and all that stuff. A busy weekend. You're heading out soon, are you not? You're heading out on travels on Sunday.
Well, yeah, I fly out tomorrow to Atlanta, and shameless plug here. Shameless plug. I got lucky enough to be calling my first national cable television broadcast, doing play-by-play for the Georgia Tech women against Florida State. That's a top 25 matchup on the CW Sunday at 4 o'clock. So I'm flying out tomorrow, heading down to Atlanta, going to watch both teams practice. Again, game at 4 o'clock Eastern on Sunday, and then heading straight to Arizona from there.
All right, let's turn over to the Payless Liquors hotline. Joining us right now on there is Alan Karpik of goldenblack.com. Alan, good morning to you, and we are going to talk Purdue and IU, obviously, with you, but I am curious, did you happen to see any of the Pacers game last night with Zach Edey returning to Indiana?
Well, I saw that he hit a three, and what he played kind of a typical game for him, and that's 20 minutes, and which is not a lot, and had 11 rebounds and 5 points. But I heard the crowd reaction when he made the three, so it was good to have him back in the state of Indiana.
It probably gave him like shades of Mackey Arena again, because he got a hero's welcome last night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, ticket prices were way up. I know some Purdue fans that were making the trip down there. I think Purdue fans may have helped drive the price of the game, but Pacers took care of business in impressive style.
Yeah, and it just so happened to be like Purdue Heritage Night. I feel like that promotion somehow just tied in perfectly with that matchup.
Yeah, I think so.
Wonder how they did that. Alan Karpik of goldenblack.com joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Okay, let's turn over to the current Purdue squad, Alan. Obviously interesting heading into Sunday. Both teams kind of, hitting a skid at the moment. Purdue has lost their last 3 games. IU has lost 6 of 7. Your thoughts on the 3-game skid currently with the Purdue Boilermakers under Matt Painter?
Well, I mean, I think it hasn't happened since the COVID year, right? Or excuse me, the year before COVID, I should say. And the Boilermakers, are really in new territory in terms of trying to regroup. They were underdogs in 2 of the 3 games, so it's not shocking where they are that they lost a couple of these games. It's been more shocking as to how much Purdue has struggled defensively. And I think you're going to have this is something that's going to have to get better. And the fact that this kind of all started defensively against Indiana in the game on January 31st at West Lafayette. This is a team, IU, that Purdue couldn't stop the dribble that game. Trey Galloway had a huge second half, and Indiana had the lead with a couple of minutes left in that game. So I don't expect an easy game for Purdue. Purdue's got to find a way to right the ship, and playing in Assembly Hall with the Hoosiers on 9 days of rest or whatever the Indiana is, will be by that time, is going to make for a big challenge, I think, for Purdue.
Hey, Alan, in recent years, whenever there's been a downturn in a Purdue season, which there have not been many of them in the last 3 to 4 years, seemingly Purdue was good enough to just skip past it and get back on track quickly. Just based off of what you heard from Matt Painter after Michigan State, and not sure if you have been to one of his media sessions since, or he has been available, has there been any sense of worry in how he has spoken leading into the next 4 games?
Well, and there hasn't been. There's availability today for him, and Nova and I just talked to him since after the Michigan State game. But I think he's looking at things realistically and knowing that you gotta find a way to defend a little bit better in the second half, and that's what's probably been the biggest bugaboo. Has not been the effort level, but it has been the defensive effort level, and the fact that Purdue has not given up about 75% shooting in the last 2 games in the second half against Wisconsin and against Michigan State. You just can't do that. And Purdue was playing much better defensively when it was winning games. It's not getting the job done now. So I think that's going to be the sense of urgency that Matt Painter's going to talk about.
Alan Karpik of goldenblack.com joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Quick sidebar, Alan. With the scheduling, it has been weird that, Purdue opponents, there's been multiple games where there's been 5 days rest for these guys. Obviously, you just said IU will have 9 days. What's that about? Is that just a niche in the schedule, or what's going on there with all the rest that these Purdue opponents are having?
Well, it is interesting. I think there was a statistic that the Big Ten, that Purdue and Michigan State had the least amount of rest of any team in the league. And I suppose television has something to do with that in terms of Purdue being sought after, being a team that's going to play a lot of prime time, quote unquote, prime time games. But yeah, it has been strange, that I don't know if it's good or bad for Indiana, but and I think Purdue at least now will have had 5 days rest. Or actually, 5 days rest after the Michigan State game. So that's been a lot for Purdue of late. It just seems like Purdue, I agree with you, it's been a real interesting quirk in the schedule. It'll be interesting also how much Big Ten teams or Big Ten coaches address this in the offseason, and if they have any power over it, because we all know television rules the roost here, and that's not worked to Purdue's advantage this year. I don't know if there's any definition or a malice towards this and towards teams like Purdue, but it has not worked out great, certainly.
This 3-game losing streak that Matt Painter's crew is on, has that caused you to have any concern heading into the tournament, or do you think this is just a blip on the radar? Just it happens that they played 3 ranked Big Ten opponents back to back to back, and it's just a lull in the schedule?
Well, I think anytime, and again, since it's been, 5 years since they've lost 3 in a row, you're going to have concern in February when you don't win. The Michigan game, which was the first of the 3, they had every chance to win that game. What's more disconcerting is the Wisconsin game at home, where that game really was, wasn't really all that close down the stretch, and Michigan State had a firm handle on things down the stretch as well. So, yeah, when you lose 3 in a row and you're Purdue, you're going to be concerned, because this team was being talked about 2 weeks ago as a team that could make it deep into the tournament, and now you're going to have some of those doubts. Your seed may be going down. Those are all factors that I think are concerning. And the fact that you play your rival, a team with kind of like nothing to lose in a lot of ways, when Purdue goes to Bloomington on Sunday.
Alan, you referenced the game on January 31st at Mackey Arena, and that was an abnormally bad shooting night for Purdue. Just 2 of 13 from deep. You still find a way to win that game. From what you can remember, is there anything that IU did specifically well to keep Purdue cold from outside, or was it just the cold night?
Well, that's a good question, because it didn't. I think Indiana did, with some of its length, cause Purdue some trouble. But I don't remember anything that was anything really in particular. I just thought the flow of the game, Indiana was really in control of a lot of things and had a great chance to win it. And again, Purdue could not stop Galloway. They had a hard time with Ballo inside. All things that I would expect Mike Woodson and company tried to exploit as they head into Sunday's game.
All right, Alan Karpik of GoldenBlack.com joining us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Alan, the expectations come tournament time, have they changed at all for you? What is the ceiling for this Purdue squad coming off a national championship runner-up?
That's a good question. I still think this is a second weekend team, and Purdue needs to find a way to get to the second weekend of the tournament. And it's a hard one to know, just because of the way the last 3 games have gone about. I like Purdue's. When you have guards like Purdue has, and Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, I think you have a chance to be a deep run tournament team. There was talk again 2 weeks ago. Is this a Final Four level team? I'm not sure Purdue's in that situation, but we'll see how Purdue responds down the stretch here, because you're going to have to regather yourself and get back to that winning habit. That's been a habit that Purdue's had a lot of over the last few years, and this group has had a lot of. And this is such new territory to be on that type of losing streak.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting Sunday. Both teams could use a win in the worst way. That's rare to say for Matt Painter's squad lately. But, Alan, we appreciate you hopping on with us this early on a Friday morning. We always appreciate it, and Golden Black is where we can find you. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great rest of the show.
Alan Karpik of GoldenBlack.com. He is outstanding. He's always one of the early birds for guests. Like, I can always reach out to him, and he will always take the earlier time slot.
It's impressive.
I appreciate it. Him and Pete Sampson. Maybe it's the college guys. Maybe that's what it is. They're just used to being up early. I don't know. But Alan Karpik, always great. GoldenBlack.com is where you can find all the great stuff. They're part of the On3 network, so we appreciate his time there. We haven't gotten into it. It's kind of is gone on the radar, obviously, just with the Four Nations last night and Pacers Grizzlies. Did you see Victor Wembanyama out for the season?
Yeah.
Man, I saw that yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, they just made that big move for DeAndre Fox and everything, and now he's out for the season. Apparently a blood clot in the shoulder, so that sounds pretty serious, but the Spurs released a press release and said he should be good to go come next season. But that is a huge blow to not only just the Spurs, but to the NBA itself and to the fans too, because obviously the Spurs were making some moves that you're like, oh, okay, let's see what they can do come playoff time. And now to see Victor Wembanyama go out, I mean, that's just a huge gut punch coming out of the All-Star break right there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because add another layer to it, Wemby was probably one of 3-4 guys on that All-Star team that took it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, there were a couple of those plays when a team just got dog-walked. Wemby was reacting as in, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. Are we not trying? So it's unfortunate, especially for a player as young as he is. I mean, that is a serious condition. But, you know, you can only hope that things figure its way out, and you'll be seeing him. It's unfortunate, too, because Indiana fans didn't get to see him here this year because, of course, you were in Paris. So
right.
Who knows how long he'll be out, but hopefully when San Antonio comes to Indianapolis next season, Pacers fans get to see Wemby.
Yeah, it was a disappointing thing. Obviously, the Spurs not having the best season, but you know they're still trying to make that play-in game potentially. But now it all falls on De'Aaron Fox and Chris Paul and Jake Query's guy, Bismack Biyombo. He's favorite player because
he's still in the league.
Yeah, he's still there.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
he had his peak in like 2014.
I know.
It's 2025.
Jake likes Bismack Biyombo. You know why?
Hold on. Let me guess. Is it something having to do with the double B?
No, yeah, it's because his name is Bismack Biyombo.
Okay.
That's why he likes him.
Got it.
So now, with Wemby out, Bismack might be seeing some minutes here. So we'll see what happens.
That's incredible. I mean, when your season comes down to CP3 trying to save it, that usually does not end well.
No. Not these
and
days.
De'Aaron Fox, Popovich is still not on the bench.
Nope.
I mean, so there's a lot going on in San Antonio. But yeah, prayers up to Wemby. Hope he's okay.
A week from now, we will be out at the Combine. Fan Morning Show will be broadcasting live from the NFL Combine next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That will be fun. I cannot wait to get out there and check it all out. Anything you want to hear from Chris Ballard and to a lesser extent Shane Steichen on Tuesday evening when they speak?
I want them to be on the same page because they were not in their end-of-season press conferences. One of them thinks the Colts are on track. The other thinks that they are completely derailing and they're not even close. So I would hope that that's something you talk about, that GM and head coach are on the same page. Will we hear from Jim Irsay during Combine Week is also something I'd be curious of. I don't know. There's just still, Mark, a lot of unanswered questions that were not expanded on at the end of the season. And I understand because there's a ton to talk about at the end of a football season, especially when you finish a football season in the same way you have in the last 5 years for the Indianapolis Colts. But more than anything, they just need to be on a parallel pace of where is the team, where are you in the process with Anthony Richardson, and what are you going to try and do in free agency? And I know those questions are not going to be answered, but just give us something that sounds like you have the same idea of what to do.
This is more of a Chris Ballard question, but I hope it gets asked on Tuesday. But how much of a voice does the Shane Steichen and a Lou Anarumo have when it comes to free agency decisions and draft decisions? Is Chris Ballard listening to those guys, or at the end of is it the line draws with Chris Ballard and he's going to make the final decision? You guys figure out how to use these guys, because Lou Anarumo obviously coming into a situation where the other guys in the building are on the hot seat. So is Lou Anarumo, are you going to give him enough ammo for his defense to fully reach its potential? And with Shane Steichen, is he telling Chris Ballard maybe we made it work somewhat in 2024, but I need some guys that are going to fit my system a little bit better? And will Chris Ballard take that to heart? It'll be curious to see how much of a voice does Chris Ballard take when it comes to Shane Steichen.
I mean, for Lou Anarumo, it's like taking a job at a restaurant when the health inspector has already been called 3 times.
What was it, Bar Rescue you said yesterday? Yeah, he's like the new GM after the other GM.
I mean, yeah, the Bar Rescue factor.
Get out of here! You got blackballed.
Kitchen Nightmares, Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
I mean, that comparison was because Chris Ballard says he's going to change. He wants to change his philosophy. And the comparison to the Kitchen Nightmares Bar Rescue is at the end of every single one of those episodes, the owner is talking with them and said, I took this to heart. I'm going to change. And then they have the 2-month fast forward. Unfortunately, they are back to their old ways, and it is completely useless of what we did. And I just hope that doesn't happen.
Multiple health code violations.
Yeah, right.
Again.
Call the health inspector.
Yeah.
Somebody, please. to Lucas Oil Stadium.
Yeah, I hope we finally see some change there, but it'll be. There's a lot of questions that I hope Chris Ballard answers. Shane Steichen, I don't know. Like, Shane Steichen won't answer much, I don't think. I feel like anything you ask him, if it already happened like a month or two ago, he's going to say we've moved on.
He's a pro's pro when it comes to not answering questions, which is great. You know, he is a head coach, and I respect it. I know they have a serious job to do. Very rarely anymore are you going to find those candid answers. That's what make Frank Reich such a good interviewee, I should say, because he was always going to give you an honest answer. Not that Shane doesn't give you honest answers. It's that you're looking for a needle in a haystack of, all right, we're looking for a buzzword here. Mm-hmm. What exactly is he saying? I mean, Frank laid it out at the end of the day.
You're shifting through the football jargon. Like, was there an answer in there? I think he said something. I don't know.
Right.
Chris Ballard, he got little feet to the fire, though, obviously, returning for year 9. He's done the song and dance a little bit. He's a veteran when it comes to the NFL Combine press conferences. So we'll see what kind of answers Kevin Bowen and the crew get from him on Tuesday evening. We'll obviously play all of that Wednesday, and then hopefully have one of those guys on the air with us at some point next week. We'll see, though.
I hope you guys do. That'd be awesome.
Well, the bat signal's out. We've had them on the last few years, but the Tuesday evening press conferences were kind of like, uh-oh, that could be trouble. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Anyway, coming up next, though, he's a staple on Fridays at 8 o'clock. You know him. You love him. It's Greg Rakestraw. He's going to join us next. He sprays to all fields. He's a sports encyclopedia. We talk to Greg Rakestraw next. Fan Morning Show on this Friday morning, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Day morning, and I feel like at some point during a break, I'm going to have to inspect Corbin and see if he has any like Canadian flag tattoos on his body or anything like that, because he's told us in the break that the Rejoiner theme for the day is like Canadian musicians. So Corbin going north of the border, an enemy of the state at the moment, as Canada beat the United States in the Four Nations Championship last night.
Well, I think Corbin, he said he watched last night, so maybe secretly he's got the Canada flags going in the apartment, and he's just wearing red and white.
He's got give me a Calgary.
He is wearing a Coors hat, though. Coors is not exactly
That's
the
true.
banquet beer of Canada. So
he's going to feature Calgary Flames fan, I believe. I think that's where we're going.
Isn't that
Maybe
Jake?
Maple Leaves? I don't know.
Jake's actually a Calgary Flame. You ever
So
tell
he
that story?
claims, yes.
No, actually, that's a real story anyway.
Yeah, he has told me that. Yeah. I think he sent a letter to
every team, and Calgary was the only team that wore a pack.
So there you go. I'm sure he's locked in on the Calgary
They're
Flames
still looking
season.
for farmers in Alberta. That's why they wanted him.
One guy we know who is locked into everything. I like to call him like the garden hose of sports encyclopedia, because you can just spray it all fields. He goes everywhere. You can ask him about anything. He knows everything. You go in the Wayback Machine. He knows everything. Greg Rakestraw, a staple of the 8 o'clock hour on the Fan Morning Show on Fridays. He joins us now on the ISC. Greg Rakestraw, how you doing, sir? How's it going this morning?
I'm good, thank you. And, when I have heard Corbin's accent in the past, a Canadian accent isn't exactly what comes to mind.
I know. I would like to hear that accent with that voice say, would you like more music, A? Can you give it? Can you say A, Corbin?
A.
Oh, my God, look at that. The voice of God talking to you.
Maybe a touch of Newfoundland in there, perhaps. Maybe. A little bit.
Greg Rakestraw, let's start there. Did you watch the Four Nations? Any interest last night from the Rakestraw household?
I did, and it was the first time that I have – well, A, I had a rare night off. That helps. B, it was the first time I'm like, you know what? I need to watch this hockey game that wasn't like a Stanley Cup final, like late game, like 5, 6, or 7. So clearly this is going to be something that's not done every year because, for example, next year's an Olympic year, and they're going to, the players are going to head over to Italy to play in the Olympics for the first time in a couple of Olympiad. So this won't happen next year, but my guess would be this is going to replace an all-star game for the foreseeable future. Job well done by everybody involved in the National Hockey League.
Rick, I got to get my hockey question in because people forget that when I was a senior at Butler, my last project ever was a documentary. I made it about Wayne Gretzky's time with the Indianapolis Racers, and you were in the documentary. You were kind enough to let me come in this building that we're sitting in right now to interview you. But just knowing, as you said, with the Olympics coming up and the World Cup of Hockey in 2028, attracting the casual fan, it seems like hockey's now got a leg up on perhaps other sports leagues trying to do the same.
Yes, at the same time, hockey is such a niche sport in comparison to some of the other things. For such a long time, it was, all right, hockey is fourth behind football, basketball, baseball. I would argue in this country, hockey is fifth behind soccer at this point. And so those that are passionate about hockey are super passionate about it, such as yourself. And those that aren't, need events like last night to help. I was unaware there was this thing called the World Cup of Hockey that was coming in 2028 because apparently we have to have a World Cup of everything at this juncture. The good news is the actual World Cup, the one they don't have to say of anything, just World Cup, is coming to this nation next year, which is wonderful to see.
Greg Rakestraw joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. You hear him on Soccer Saturday, ISC. He's everywhere. You can see him wherever you want. Greg, high school hoops, you said you had a rare night off. I'm curious your schedule this weekend, though. I assume it is not a day off for Greg Rakestraw this weekend.
Warren Central and Carmel is the game tonight. We are down to the last week of the season starting next week. Most teams have one, maybe two games. Occasionally a team will have a third game next week just because they're trying to play catch-up in terms of snow makeups, which obviously we've had a handful of those during the course of the year. Tomorrow is the girls' semi-state round. I actually have the wrestling state finals tomorrow night. But as it pertains to this radio station, at least our sister station, 93 WIBC, we have the boys basketball pairing show coming up
There you go.
Sunday night, 6 o'clock, which you can catch on 93 WIBC.
I love it. I love it. Obviously, from the collegiate level, though, Rake, we've got a big one Sunday, Purdue and IU at Assembly Hall. Purdue trying to get back on track for March with their aspirations, while IU, I don't know, is it playing for pride for Mike Woodson? What are we doing here? Who's the bigger game for on Sunday?
I'm going to say, is it a big one?
I feel like it is.
It's Purdue and Indiana. I get that. There's going to be, 15, 16,000 people in Assembly Hall, but you've got Purdue on a 3-game skid, which, again, this is very much a compliment to what Matt Painter has done. Their worst losing streak in 5 years. And again, in Indiana, I'm not sure pride is something associated with that program right now. They're playing for something. And so, yeah, I know it's a rivalry game, and that is somewhat meant to be snarky. Okay, very snarky, and how I say that, but I'm not exactly all hot and bothered about this game, given how both teams are playing heading into it.
I feel like it is a big one only because both teams are kind of limping into this game, which is kind of rare. Usually one team is far greater than the other, but Purdue, obviously, 3-game losing streak. IU's lost 6 of 7. Woodson's on his way out. There's a lot of in-house stuff going on over there as well. So I do think it's a big game. I know it's weird to say that with both teams limping in. I do think it is a big game, though, on Sunday for both teams.
Good for you. In honor of the 50th anniversary of SNL last week, the only thing I can think of is, Mark, you ignorant slut.
Yeah.
It is not a big game because of how those two teams are playing going into it.
Oh.
Is that allowed?
Greg Rakestraw said
Rake
we're
would know.
We're allowing it. He used to be a program director here. He knows what can fly on
Well,
the
that's
air
what
and
I'm saying.
can't.
I would trust Rake among anybody else when it
We
comes
need to get you
what's
off air,
allowed on
Rake,
the
and I
radio.
need to ask you what words I can actually say on here without getting in trouble.
Yeah, you're fine with that. That one's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, fantastic.
Is that like a rated R movie? We get like
cut off. You can say right there.
We get one a show. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Maybe you can sneak in Hobag, but just I wouldn't do it more than
well,
one.
Now you're
Another
blowing,
great one.
You're blowing the whole wad
We're
here.
playing
we got nothing
the
else to
hits.
play with here.
I'm not sure you can say that last word you just said. Be
Oh.
careful.
Wad.
I wouldn't say. See again. There it is again. I wouldn't do that.
Okay. All right. I will be careful. Greg Rakestraw, ISC, joining us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Rake, a week from now, we'll be out at the Combine. Your thoughts, anything you want to hear specifically from Chris Ballard and to a lesser extent Shane Steichen when they speak next Tuesday evening?
Yes and no, but again, we're to the point of where, I've heard the postseason postmortem. Nothing really has happened since then. I'm never complaining about a chance to hear from those guys and kind of get comments on the record, but we're about to be to the point of actions will speak louder than words. Again, we're really about 2 weeks out at this juncture, from free agent, signings, which obviously have been hit or miss, for this team. And it's been, I wouldn't say missed, just not as active in terms of going and getting other players. As we have well known, it's been about running it back and building from within. Early January, Chris says, hey, it's probably time to change that. All right, let's see you do it now 2 weeks from now. So it's great that they are talking. It's what every coach and general manager do at the Combine. It's different here because it's in our backyard. But I am far more interested by what happens in and around March 10th and what happens in and around April 24th, because that will do more than words. That will then actually signal a potential change in philosophy for the better for this football team going forward.
George Carlin famously had the 7 words you can't say on television. Greg Rakestraw
don't say any of those.
Greg
None
Rakestraw
of those.
giving us the 7 words you can't say on radio today. I appreciate it, Rake. We're getting the radio version.
You're welcome.
It's been very educational, especially since I'll be on television
we need to
on
isolate
Sunday.
a couple sound bites here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Rake, I want to go back to IU for just a moment, because after the Hail Mary of Brad Stevens thrown for, a third time now, went by the wayside, where's the focus in your mind for IU got to be? Is it Dusty May or bust, or do you do that national search?
Well, you're doing the national search because you've got the time. The way this has played out, you've got 4, 5, 6 weeks to work on it. The way I've described it is this. Imagine like an organizational flow chart. Okay, there was an owner, there was a CEO, and then there's like 10 people under that level, all right? So if the owner was Brad Stevens and the CEO is Dusty May, if he's next, then it is, throw so many different names. The Bruce Pearl, no particular order, Chris Beard, Rick Pitino, Buzz Williams, et cetera, guys that you think would be interested in this job, again, because of what is now the name, image, and likeness opportunities, the simple budget that Indiana University basketball has to worked with in the offseason, and still couldn't get it right in terms of putting the pieces together. So absolutely, and they are going with the same search firm they used for Kurt Signetti. And so I don't think it's Dusty May or bust. I think he is the clear favorite. But imagine this like a major thoroughbred race. All right, if Dusty May is the 2-1 favorite, the horse you are betting to place maybe is 8-1 or something along those lines. Still not exactly massive odds there, or a long shot. So I think there are other viable candidates, but Dusty is clearly the favorite.
Greg Rakestraw letting it fly from all areas today. I like it. Kevin Bowen out in Florida on vacation. I'm curious, when Greg Rakestraw kicks up his feet, what is a favorite vacation spot for a Greg Rakestraw?
Parts unknown. I like to treat it like the witness protection program.
Like
that way nobody
warrior.
can find me.
Like the Ultimate Warrior, parts unknown.
Yep, kind of like any masked man in wrestling history, absolutely. Even though the Ultimate Warrior is from Indiana.
Yeah, I know. That was always interesting, too. He's parts unknown. I'm like, actually, that's in the Midwest.
Actually, Fountain Central High School would be more precise.
Quite easy to find a Jim Hellwig. Anyway. Greg, we appreciate the time as always, sir. Thank you. It has been educational. It has been entertaining. It has been all things I could have hoped and dreamed for on this Friday, 8 o'clock. Have yourself a great weekend, all right? And enjoy IU Purdue, the massive game that is IU Purdue on Sunday.
I wouldn't say I'd be missing it, Bob.
Appreciate it, Greg. Have a good one, man.
See ya.
Thanks, Rick.
Oh, my God. I didn't know we could say some of that on the air. But wait, I guess we let it fly. Greg would know.
Well, I think there's
I don't want to repeat it, though.
No, I don't either. But if there's anybody in this state that has earned the right to do that, wouldn't it be Greg Rakestraw?
He would know. Again, he's a sports.
Well, no, I'm just saying. I think
he's earned the right.
If I walked into the studio and I did that, I have a feeling I might be called into HR.
Yeah. Yeah, he will be like, oh, it's Greg being Greg.
Oh no, it's great.
Yeah.
Greg Rakestraw is the man, and I'm glad he did that because that was hilarious. But yeah, I think if there's anybody in this state that has earned the right to say whatever they want, it's Greg Rakestraw.
We don't have the clout that a Greg Rakestraw does, is what we're saying. So we're not going to repeat those words. If you missed it,
no,
you'll have to catch it on the podcast. I don't think we're re-racking that on the air, but that was fun stuff by Greg. I think I've been called those names since high school.
How do you respond to such accusations?
Guilty as charged.
Real? That might be even crazier, to be honest with you. Clip that, please. Clip that for Kevin next week, Corbin. Thank you.
Oh my God, I don't even know where we go from there. That was just we might end the show and just walk out. That was phenomenal stuff from Greg Rakestraw. Again, check it out on the podcast, on the Fan Morning Show podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts, you can find it there. Greg, not excited about IU Purdue. I kind of disagree, but that's fine. That's the point of sports radio. We can disagree and agree as well. But he's pulling out old SNL quotes. He won't tell us where he's vacationing.
He came ready.
The Ultimate Warrior. Unbelievable. Combine stuff. Yeah, we keep going down this notion with the NFL Combine that it's Tyler Warren or bust for the Indianapolis Colts. And like all the mock drafts I'm seeing now is he's going much earlier than 14. My thought that I had last night was if you're a Colts fan and you're starting to like get the hint that maybe Tyler Warren, you're going to have to trade up some draft capital in order to get him. Let's say you have to move up 7 spots to get a Tyler Warren. Would you rather use that draft capital to get what you hope to be a top 5 tight end to pair with Anthony Richardson? Or would you rather use that draft capital and trade it for like a Myles Garrett type?
Well, then you just add to the run, and I understand Myles Garrett is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL and could be one day a future Hall of Famer. But then you just add to the constant question marks of what the defensive line in Indianapolis is. What happens to Liatu Latu? What happens to Kwity Paye? Do you re-sign Dio Dangbo? So as much of an aggressive move as that would be, I mean, and just thinking about what you would have to trade in that scenario, I don't know, man. I think you need, as we discussed yesterday, that tight end room, I think you put it well yesterday, has cobwebs in it.
It's got cobwebs and like an original Nintendo Wii.
Seriously.
It's been sitting around. That room's been abandoned for a while.
That room is like the Baseball Tonight set at ESPN. Hasn't been touched.
Nope.
Nobody goes in there anymore. It's a graveyard.
Tim Kirchin, not like a single tear goes down Tim Kirchin's face.
That's where Tim Kirchin might live. I mean, he was so upset that they got rid of baseball tonight. Anyway, in any case, that room needs a revitalization, like somebody that drives a 2005 broken down car that's on its last life, right? I mean, it's time to buy a new car.
Yeah.
Your car's 20 years old. And I understand that there are some young pieces in that tight end room still. I understand Kylan Granson is not an old player. Mo Alley Cox is a veteran. I understand that obviously you haven't gotten what you wanted out of Jelani Woods, but he is still a young player. Drew Ogletree is still a young player. But at the end of the day, when you continue to run it back, expecting different results from this room, and maybe some of it is on the quarterback play, certainly. Maybe some of it's on the quarterback play. But just knowing what a Warren could be and how he can immediately change the offense while also making a guy like Josh Downs, while making a guy like A.D. Mitchell, like making a guy like Alec Pierce more dangerous. Because Alec Pierce on a deep ball, when you've got that tight end threat, that's what Tom Brady did for years, right? I mean, how much more dangerous did Tom Brady's receivers get knowing that you had to defend Rob Gronkowski over the middle? You open up Edelman, you open up Randy Moss. You could say it here, Dallas Clark. You could say the same thing here. How much more dangerous did a Reggie Wayne become knowing the defense has to worry about a Dallas Clark? Infinity.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of times just, looking at other rosters around the league offensively, you're just like, I mean, the Colts don't really match up well with this guy. They don't have a guy that's going to make other opposing defenses sweat it out. Like, we have to game plan for this guy. They've never had really a Travis Kelce type or a Zach Ertz type or Dallas Goedert or anything like that. It's kind of a position that's kind of, while other teams have adapted to the tight end position of being a pass catching position, the Colts have kind of gone backwards, and they've made it just more of a blocking position and all that. You don't have to cover the tight end downfield because you know they're not going to throw it to him. And if they do, you also don't know if Anthony Richardson's going to be able to accurately get it to him, and you don't know if that tight end is actually going to catch it. So there's a lot of issues going on right there. And same thing with Tyler Warren. Like, I would like him if he's in a Colts uniform. Would I trade up 7 draft picks to get him for a team that probably has a lot more questions on the roster than just tight end? I don't know. That might be a little too rich for my blood. I don't know if I go that route. So if it's looking like Tyler Warren is not going to be there at 14, Colts-wise, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you trade down. Do you stay at 14 and just take best player available regardless of position? Or you try to allocate some draft compensation by moving down a little bit. Tyler Warren is a solid piece to have on your team. I don't know if he's worth moving up 7 spots to get him if you're the Colts, though.
And we'll see how it shakes out. I mean, that is so enticing at the top, knowing Travis Hunter is the ultimate wild card. I mean, could you imagine if Hunter ends up being the number 1 overall pick and what kind of movement there could be then in the top 10 to go after quarterbacks? To me, Hunter is the most compelling story of the draft because it's obvious what teams need quarterbacks. Obvious. However, when you're looking for A, a star wide receiver, and B, a star corner, and knowing you could say, hey, we could get that in one guy. Who knows how Travis Hunter is going to adjust to the NFL, but that is going to be a pretty penny for whoever snags him. Let's say somebody trades up and selects Travis Hunter first overall. Let's say there's a surprise with Travis Hunter being the first overall pick. What happens then in the quarterback ranks and who starts trading? And does a tight end get lost in translation?
Maybe.
And the Colts are it's kind of like in a fantasy football draft when one of your friends picks a rando, you're like, what'd you do that for? And they're like, oh, I got a good feeling about him. But then you're like, okay, well, this guy I'm 5 picks away. And there are people in front of me, I don't think they're going to take him. And you're just praying and hoping with every 90 seconds that goes by in the fantasy draft, please keep falling. Please keep falling. Please keep falling. If Travis Hunter goes first overall, that could be what happens with Tyler Warren.
Hunter is going to be very interesting because I'm just curious if any NFL team is actually going to use him at both positions. Or are you just going to try to identify him at where he's strongest at and just start him there?
I mean, listen, the NFL is not the Big 12. And Deion Sanders is not going to be Travis Hunter's coach. However, just the raw talent, I mean, that just screams, let's make some history here.
Yeah.
Let's give him a shot. Let's see what can happen. At least test it out during training camp. If it's pretty obvious that one or the other is a significant downgrade based on what you see from camp, I think that's when you make the decision. But give him a shot.
NFL Combine coming to town. NFL World descending on Indianapolis in a matter of days. We'll be out there Tuesday through Friday all next week. Thank you again to Greg Rakestraw for educating us and entertaining us at 8 o'clock. We'll get into more guests coming down. We got Zach Osterman at 9:05. He's going to give us the IU side of things. We'll see if he thinks that it's a big game on Sunday. Greg Rakestraw does not.
I thought you meant if he thinks you're a
oh, well.
Pick your favorite
I
four-letter
think
word.
people probably think Mark Dykton is a lot of things.
I mean,
I'd be curious. My pride could use a little coaxing after that. I haven't been called that, like I said, since high school, I think. That's okay, though.
At homecoming?
Not at homecoming.
Do you have 4 homecoming dates?
Yeah, guy friends just giving you crap or something or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah,
totally
it's okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I accept the role.
There
it's
you go.
2025. You
right.
give me whatever labels you want. I will accept all of them. Well, all right, let's get into a morning check down now before we get off the rails anymore. Wednesday was kind of a dull night in sports. Thursday night was not. Thursday night was a very good night. Let's start locally with the Pacers. 127-113 winners over the Memphis Grizzlies. 7 Pacers in double figures, including a returning Miles Turner, 17 points, 10 boards, 7 blocks. A solid effort from Tyrese Halliburton. He had 22 points. Pacers got off to kind of a slow start. Then, like we've talked about, 50 points in the second quarter there. Good to see from the Pacers as well. They've got a busy one coming up. Sunday, Monday, back-to-back games, Clippers and Nuggets. Any thoughts on the Pacers game from last night on your end since you were in attendance?
Yeah, just the starting 1 of 10 from 3. Miles Turner, he referenced it in a couple sound bites of he tried to go too hot, missed his first 4 threes in his first 6 minutes. They put in Thomas Bryant. But again, I did pinpoint to one area where Miles missed his 4-3, and then there was a stoppage. And you know how in the NBA and in college basketball, guys take the shot anyway, even though the whistle blew?
Mm-hmm.
So Turner was 0 of 4 from 3 in the corner. Whistle blows. He takes a 3 anyway. It hits, and he goes off the floor. Thomas Bryant comes in. Miles comes back out, hits back-to-back threes, and that's really when the tides turn. Ben Mathurin hit a big 3 in that first quarter. T.J. McConnell then hit a triple, and then Turner came out like a madman, hit those back-to-back threes, really got himself back grooving. So, hey, a lot of times you see one go in, it works for the Pacers.
Again, Pacers get back to work on Sunday when they host the Clippers. Then they face the Nuggets on Monday. So a critical back-to-back coming up for the Pacers. They'll have the next couple days off. Four Nations Championship last night. I'm curious to see what the ratings are for that because it seemed like everyone was locked in. Canada tops the USA 3-2 in overtime thanks to Connor McDavid's goal in overtime. A very solid night, a very solid event. Greg Rakestraw was locked in. Corbin was locked in. Corbin's got maple syrup pumping out of his veins this morning with Rejoiner music. So a very solid event. NBA can take some notes from that. Coming up next, we've got some more talk as far as the Colts are concerned. Pacers talk. Victor Wembanyama out for the season. Your thoughts on the Four Nations. Did you watch? Did you enjoy it? Are you going to be a hockey fan now? 317-239-1070. And we also have a big women's basketball game in town on Saturday. Butler hosting UConn. Again, you might want to be staying listening. We might have something for you coming up shortly. It's the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Well, we just came back and that IndyCar promo played. I was curious to get your thoughts. JMV had IMS president and IndyCar president now, Doug Bowles, on the show yesterday. From Tom's Watch Bar, did you happen to hear the Carb Day announcement? Did you hear the concert announcement, courtesy of Doug Bowles?
Didn't hear it from Doug Bowles, heard it from you, but quite the tandem coming in for Carb Day.
Interesting combo. Bret Michaels of Poison fame will be the headliner. I guess it's co-headlining. And the All-American Rejects are going to be the Carb Day concert Friday, May 23rd. That do anything for you, Bret Michaels / Poison guy, or an All-American Rejects guy?
Not at all Bret Michaels. However, All-American Rejects. So, what year did you graduate high school?
2004.
Okay, so you're a little older than me. But All-American Rejects, that was like my 6th, 7th grade. Move Along, Dirty Little Secret.
Yep.
Those two songs had me in a chokehold for 4 or 5 years. I mean, on repeat. Classic iPod. I remember the iPod Nano.
Oh, yeah.
The little screen where you kind of
My
circle your finger.
iPod is probably at my parents' house still somewhere, dying for a charge.
Oh, it's somewhere. Yeah. And then I got the iPod Touch, which was the OG iPhone without the phone. Right? But no, if I go back and I pulled up my iPod Nano and my iPod Touch, it would have quite a bit of All-American Rejects. So that is going to be a banger.
All-American Rejects and like Jet and the Vines and the Hives, like those kind of bands and everything. The White Stripes, the Strokes, probably. Corbin, you a Poison / Bret Michaels or All-American Rejects? Corbin is Mr. Music, so I'm curious his thoughts.
I have not heard a single song by any of those.
Okay.
What?
Come
really?
on.
Even the Rejects?
I'm 90s country, man.
I know, but even the Rejects.
Poison, Bret Michaels, also famously the guy that Kevin Bowen thought was Shawn Michaels, my favorite wrestler of all time. He thought Bret Michaels was Shawn Michaels, and that Shawn Michaels had a show on VH1 in the mid-2000s and said, no, that's Bret Michaels of Poison. That was Rock of Love. And he was quick to apologize because he didn't know the difference between Shawn Michaels and Bret Michaels. Do you know Shawn Michaels at all?
I know Shawn Michaels.
Okay. Corbin, do you know Shawn Michaels?
Do not watch WWE.
Okay, come on, Corbin.
HBK?
You're killing me this
well,
morning.
I mean.
The Heartbreak Kid. Good grief. All right, we're going to have to educate Corbin when it comes to mid-2000s pop rock and WWE Hall of Famers.
Well, I'd say Shawn Michaels and Corbin go together because they both know they're sexy.
That's true. That is very true. Shawn Michaels especially.
Can you say sexy on the radio?
Well, we could say a lot of things on the radio. I've learned that in the segment with Greg Rakestraw.
Is that okay?
There was a couple things. WAD, I feel like you can say. I looked up that definition. It's a bundled up like piece of paper or something. That's fine. It's not a big deal.
Kobe.
Yeah. You wadded up a piece of paper. You threw it in the trash can. You
Well,
say
exactly.
Kobe
Were
and
you
Jordan?
Well, okay. Are we among the same generation where you said Kobe when you did that in high school?
Or
MJ?
I was still, growing up in the suburbs of Chicago. I would say Jordan. Just that was regional. That was like a requirement at the birth certificate. You had to say Jordan whenever you threw a piece of paper in the trash can in elementary school. Kobe, I definitely got around. I don't hear anyone saying LeBron though or anything like that. Maybe that's the new generation, and my kids know him from Space Jam. Every time LeBron's on TV, they say that's the guy from Space Jam, Space Jam 2.
With LeBron?
Yeah.
You know
not
what?
that good. It came out during COVID. It's not.
I have not seen Space Jam 2. Don't plan on it.
It's not that good. The MJ one, obviously, I'm biased, but that one holds up. That was
it's fantastic.
That soundtrack was banger after banger. That was just a great movie. The Space Jam 2 that came out in the peak of COVID. They released it on like HBO Max. It's fine.
The thing about the OG Space Jam is not only was Bill Murray fantastic, Newman from Seinfeld was tremendous.
Outstanding. Yeah, and then you had the talents of Muggsy Bogues and everything. Who wouldn't want that? I know I would, but yeah, Space Jam 1 over Space Jam 2, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Okay, so Carb Day concert, Bret Michaels and All-American Rejects. That will be Friday, May 23rd. We'll be out at Carb Day. Obviously, that is one of my favorite events, just like the Combine is, which that'll get started a week from now.
That I will see at. I will see at Carb Day.
Oh, really? You'll be out
so
there.
The South Bend Cubs are kind enough to let me come back and do the track updates on 93 WIBC and right here on 107.5 The Fan, also on Network Indiana. So I will be back for all of practice, qualifying, and race day to hang out with you knuckleheads, and we'll have a time. It'll be great.
I mean, that is the one thing that's getting me through like these winters. Like when I was just trying to run home with my daughters from school yesterday, and we were trying not to just have our faces burned off with the wind and the chill. I was kind of like, okay, we're getting close to Carb Day. We're like almost 3 months out. We can make it. We can do this. We can make it there. And so I'm like, okay, because Carb Day. I mean, again, that is one of the sports calendar. That is one of the best things about Indianapolis is the Carb Day, Indy 500 weekend, all that stuff. It's just so fun. But Carb Day is just another beast. And, having never been there until a few years ago, I didn't really know what it was all about, but it lives up to the hype and then some. If you're a people watcher, that's always interesting to see. You got the EDM kids.
Did you get a media center pass?
I did, but I also wandered around with everybody. So
the best people watching, and this is a tip for this year, the best people watching on Carb Day, second floor of the media center on the mezzanine. You got an elevated surface, and you're overlooking the ocean of craziness. The outfits, the coolers, the hats. A lot of times the not clothes, right? But if you're looking to people watch, second floor of the media center, mezzanine, go to town.
I arrived at Carb Day, I think it was 2 years ago, and I was just walking. I parked my car, was walking, made it toward the track. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. As soon as I walked into the bathroom, the one and only other person I see in there is a guy, no clothes on, except for a checkered flag as a bikini bottom tied around him.
Okay.
And I said, "Is it May yet?" "You're damn right it is." And I got the vibe right.
It was Corbin.
It was not.
No.
It was not Corbin.
And that's how Corbin got the radio producer gig for IndyCar.
No, Corbin's got the maple leaf symbol on his.
There you go.
I'd be able to pick out Corbin in a crowd now.
There you go.
Unfortunately. But yeah, so 3 months away from now, a little over 3 months away, we'll be out at Carb Day. Cannot wait. We'll be out at the Combine next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Hoping to have Shane Steichen or Chris Ballard on with us. But they are speaking Tuesday evening, which is, boy, prayers to those guys that cover the team, because that is a stinky time to have the guys of the Colts speak, because Tuesday evening, that means you're working in Tuesday evening and probably later to get your articles out, podcast or whatever you're doing. That stinks for them. But
well, that's the downside. The upside for those that host a morning sports radio show is that content is very fresh.
Yes, it
come
is.
7 a.m. So
that probably means I'm gonna have a busy evening too, because I'll be cutting audio and whatnot. But that's fine. I'll handle it. I'll take one for the team.
Yeah, you wear the C. Kevin doesn't wear the C.
No.
You wear the C.
Kevin's off laying out in the Florida sands right now while we're breaking down Four Nations and
that's what I'm saying.
Pacers, Grizzlies, and everything. So, coming up next, though, I've teased it for a little bit now. There's a big game at Hinkle Fieldhouse on Saturday. The Butler women host the UConn women. Pretty hot ticket in town, I would say. You stick around next break, we got something for you. So hang in with us. It's a Friday. What else are you doing? It's cold. It's the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykton, Brendan King, Corbin Lingenfelter here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. I had this CD back in the day. It was like when Best Buy was still like rocking CDs. They had like CD like artists up and coming. It was like $4. I bought this. I bought the Papa Roach debut album. I forget what else I bought, but it was like $4.99. I was like, I'll check out Avril Lavigne. Sure, solid album, not too bad. My sister-in-law, she's big on TikTok. She likes checking TikTok. I don't do TikTok as much. She's got this theory, or at least the people that she follows on TikTok.
I know what you're gonna say.
That Avril Lavigne is like dead, and like a fake Avril Lavigne has taken over. Have you seen this?
I was actually about to bring that up to you. Do you believe that Avril, the conspiracy theory about Miss Levine?
I mean, I've heard it. I don't know if I can go that route. I've also seen like the Britney Spears. Oh, it's not actually her. It's her sister pretending to be her. I'm like, what the hell are we doing here?
I feel like that's an overused conspiracy now. Like, oh, this is a fake version of this person.
It's like, look at you see that half frame where it changed right there? That was actually Britney's sister. That was Jamie Lynn. I'm like, okay.
But no, there is actually I did a YouTube dive. You know, you get into a YouTube rabbit hole, and you can't dig yourself back up. You know, you've gone too far. There's quite the YouTube rabbit hole about Miss Levine, and there could be a compelling case there. However, I don't want her lawyers reaching out, so I'm going to leave it at that.
I'm going to say I dismiss those TikTok rumors and everything like that. I haven't seen her perform live. I have seen her ex-husband, Derek of Sum 41. I have seen him perform a couple times. They're good. They are also Canadian, Corbin. If you want some suggestions for some Rejoiner music, as I almost burp on there, that would have been bad.
I haven't heard any Drake yet. I feel like that would be the biggest one.
Drake should probably go into hiding after the Super Bowl.
They like to sue.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And after what Kendrick did to him on Super Bowl Sunday, I think he's kind of laying low. I don't know.
Probably smart. He just dropped an album, though, so maybe not. But.
He did. Yeah, he did. I don't know how many people are checking that out. Pacers win last night, 127-113 over the Memphis Grizzlies. Strong start for the Pacers. It was good to see, especially as a guy who was watching the Pacers kind of like, you know, as they're heading into the All-Star break, I'm like, this team needs a break. The way that they're playing, like, they somehow split 2 of the 4 road games out west, but that was easily an 0-for-4 performance. And by all accounts, it probably should have been. They escaped Utah and whatnot, but that was kind of an interesting thing because it was 4 games that they should have probably all lost. Instead, they split those series. And so you didn't really know heading into the All-Star break what you were going to get on the other side of it. Miles Turner returns to the lineup. Maybe that had a big thing to do with it, but the scoring returned a ton, especially in the second quarter. 50 points for the Pacers last night as they topped the Grizzlies 127-113. So at least for one game, the scoring for the Pacers has returned.
Yeah, and I thought Scott Agnes put it well yesterday because I asked him is there a particular player that benefits the most with Miles Turner coming back, and he said no, and he made a good point about it. It's just the spacing that Miles provides and knowing that the defense of any team that the Pacers play has to commit to the three-point line, definitely more so than a Thomas Bryant. But again, Miles missed his first 4 threes in his first 6 minutes, found his groove. Pacers went 1 of 10 from deep to start the game. 50-point second quarter ensues. They were due for one of those games. They got it. And you mentioned plenty of times over the last couple days this stretch of just how difficult it's going to be. L.A., Denver, followed by Toronto. That Raptors game sneaky because Brandon Ingram is now a Raptor. But, I mean, they found their groove. And again, Obi Toppin, I don't think he's going to be your savior down the stretch here. But if he can play like he did, half of what he did in Washington, and like he did last night, plus 10 in 20 minutes, he had 12 points, he had 2 triples, he was 50% from outside. That's exactly what you need from an Obi Toppin to be able to find success off the bench. And again, if he's the only guy providing energy, you're still going to have a shot because he got you back in that game in Washington before the break.
Did you happen to see John Morant, who was in uniform for the Grizzlies last night? He was another player of these. You've seen this string of burglaries with athletes, pro athletes. John Morant, apparently the latest big-name athlete, burglarized, his house burglarized from 7 men from Chile, apparently, back in the day. So ESPN's Tim McMahon reporting that John Morant, the latest one, in a string of robberies. So we saw like Joe Burrow and a couple of Patrick Mahomes, I think, at one point during the NFL season because these guys would see that the players were out of town for these away games and know that the house was unattended, or at least, lack of security, would take advantage there. So John Morant, the latest one there, his house out in Florida, in Tampa. So
somebody's got to get those Chile men some coats.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most dad joke of all week, and you're not even a father.
Well, that I know of. Anyway,
No, I could call you a name that Greg Rakestraw called me a little earlier.
It was kind of spooky because I got the ESPN notification about that just as the game was tipping. Mm-hmm. Did anybody tell Ja? I would assume he would know.
He commented at last night's game, so he did not want to talk about it, apparently.
I wouldn't want to talk about it either, but I just kind of found it ironic that the ESPN blast went out as the game was tipping. You're like, hey, Ja.
Yeah,
you might want to answer your phone.
This apparently happened back like before Christmas, so it's been a little bit, but the story just came to light because originally the police that investigated it did not identify who the person was, and then the report came out after the FBI filed the complaint in January that it was indeed Ja Morant's house that was burglarized. So lots of stuff going on with Ja Morant. Obviously, off the court has been quite the situation for him. It's nice to see that he was on the other side of it this time. It stinks that his house got burglarized, but at first when I saw that, I was like, oh no, what did he do now? But it's like, okay, he was on the receiving end this time. So,
I mean, if he needs a bodyguard, he's got a 7'4" teammate.
That's true. Zach Edey in attendance last night, got a hero's welcome. It was like Mackey Arena Part 2. That was probably good to see. I didn't hear many Zach Edey quotes post-game, but I'm sure that probably filled his heart a little bit, especially when he did that step-back three and knocked it down.
Watching Zach Edey hit a step-back three, just the concept of that, because I watched him plenty live as a Purdue Boilermaker, and just the way he moved, the way he walked and jogged and ran in college, seeing Zach Edey hit a step-back three from the top of the key is not something I thought he could physically do, but he did. 3 of his 5 points on the night, and again, he had a great start to the game. But, yeah, the welcome with the crowd reaction was nuts. I mean, you would have thought Tyrese Halliburton hit a 3. It was like Lance. You know what it was like? It was like when Lance Stevenson dropped 20 in the first quarter against Brooklyn in 2021. Place went nuts. People were standing. It was insane for a visiting player. I understand that's going to be the case anytime he comes back to Indianapolis, but that was something.
Yeah. If the Pacers can get through these next few games, obviously, again, Clippers Sunday, Nuggets Monday, and then Raptors on Wednesday, the schedule kind of lightens up after that. You're at Miami the following Friday, and then you have games against Chicago, Houston, and a couple games against the Hawks. Those teams are still in the playoff mix, but they're in the lower half. They're buying for the play-in game at this point. So the schedule does lighten up. So if you can get through these next couple games, maybe split these next 3, get 2 wins, 2 losses, you're feeling pretty good heading into those next set of games.
I would be, especially if you come out of that healthy. I mean, imperative that you come out of that healthy.
So Kevin Bowen texted me last night.
Oh, okay.
This was last night.
What's he doing up right now?
I don't know. I saw him out on Instagram. He and his wife were out at a local bar, and it looked like a guy was performing, and he was doing an acoustic version of The Killer's Mr. Brightside. And
best wedding song of all time, by the way.
Yeah. Kevin's wife, the lovely Maddie, was recording, so I saw little Kevin Bowen. He looked like he is enjoying his time in Florida. Well, just say
I would
that.
hope he is.
He was singing along. He was full beautiful. He covers his head up when he's on air with the hat, but then when he's out in Florida, he's letting those luscious locks from We Grow Hair Indy fly. So he's getting the full tan.
Artist Robotic, FUE. Would you say Mr. Brightside is the best wedding song?
Is it This is probably a generational thing. I would say no. I would say it's one of the more popular ones. I would say.
You don't think it's the best?
Well, like the most recent wedding I attended was my younger brother's wedding last June. And I would say the song that got the people going the most was an oldie but a goodie. It was the Isley Brothers Shout.
Ooh,
So that one got the crowd bumping. Mr. Brightside did play, and it was popular, but I would say the Isley Brothers really brought the house down.
Now, I'm going to sound like a whack job here, but Mr. Brightside must be played at a specific time at a wedding. You can't play it too early, and you can't play it too late. You need to play Mr. Brightside at your wedding just as people are hitting the open bar for like a second time. Let them get their base level, but let them be at a level where they are functional and able to speak so they can burst out the words. Perfect time for Mr. Brightside at a wedding, 10:45 p.m.
Oh, wow. You're thinking people are only getting their second drinks at 10:45?
Well, it depends. Well, no, give me 10:15.
10:45, I was about to hit the floor, I feel like.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sorry. I should have clarified. Second, third drink after dinner.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
That makes more
Right.
sense.
That's what I'm saying.
10:45. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, because most weddings end at midnight. And by the time
That's
midnight
true.
rolls around, people have those glow sticks that are hitting each other with them. That's the big thing now, the glow sticks.
Yeah. Regardless of time, it's always nice when like the modern songs hit and you're like, Grandma and Grandpa are gonna be looking around like, what the hell is this song?
I think Grandma and Grandpa are gone by then. You bring out the rap and you bring out the excessiveness after the
you try to
older
keep it,
crowd leaves.
You try to keep it, a little older and do the nice slow songs and stuff. And then when it starts going,
Exactly.
Okay.
Big shout out, by the way, to my buddy Tyler. He got married on New Year's Eve here in town, and he did exactly that. And to this day, like, it is the greatest wedding swing I've ever had. It is Mr. Brightside and Sugar Were Going Down back to back by Fall Out Boy.
That's recipe
It
for
was
disaster.
well done. Oh, it was well done.
So we'll talk to Zach Osterman of the Indy Star. He'll join us in about 15 minutes. I teased this a little bit earlier, though. Kevin texted me. I assume this was before the bar hopping that occurred with them singing Mr. Brightside. But he let me know that despite him being out, Butler has been generous enough to send us 4 tickets to this Saturday afternoon's game with the Butler women taking on UConn. That is a huge one at Hinkle Fieldhouse, 4:30. He said, feel free to give these away, but they are big tickets. And I wholeheartedly agree that these are big tickets. We teach them all show long. So let's light up 317-239-1070. If you would like to go to UConn Butler, the women's game at 4:30 tomorrow, give us a call right now, and we'll take fast fingers. We'll figure something out. But if you want to go, feel free to call.
Last chance to watch Paige Beckers at Hinkle Fieldhouse. So
yeah,
one last run for Gino and this core of UConn Huskies, and who knows how long Gino Auriemma has left. I mean, he's been going at it forever. And yeah, I mean, it's amazing when UConn rejoined the Big East, and it was right around when I was finishing college. And the word went around campus like, hey, like UConn's going to come here every year. It was a hot commodity when UConn rejoined the Big East because you knew the women were going to come to Indy every year.
I'll be curious to see Paige Becker's like WNBA career as opposed to Caitlin Clark. Like Caitlin Clark obviously is otherworldly right now. Like there was a couple podcasts and whatever just going over like the value that Caitlin Clark has brought to the WNBA. Her just overall value is like $36 million. It's something like insane where the WNBA and most leagues couldn't really pay her what her true worth is around the league. I'm curious to see when Paige Beckers finds her way to the WNBA, what her impact is, because she's probably the next big name coming to the WNBA in the near future.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thought, and I think what did Caitlin Clark so well, not just because of the universal fandom and the kids that wanted to be like her. Caitlin Clark had that run in the NCAA tournament, and in recent years, UConn has not been the same UConn when it comes to the NCAA tournament. So March Madness run for Paige Beckers and the Huskies, that would only help her cause of getting to the WNBA and getting playing time. But, Caitlin Clark was going to be the WNBA future face regardless of if she made that run or not. But Paige Beckers can do herself a huge favor if UConn has a successful March.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see not only where she lands, but just her impact once she does make that, what the fan reaction is when she comes. Because I feel like she's obviously, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the college women's game as well as most other people do, but I would assume she's going to be the number 1 overall pick when she does finally declare and come out to WNBA. Where does she go? How does she pair up? Will there be a little rivalry built up where you have Caitlin Clark in Indiana? You've got Paige Beckers wherever she lands. You got Angel Reese in Chicago. There's like a nice young infusion going on in the WNBA right now, and obviously that's reflecting not only in fan interest but in the ratings as well. So we'll see how much they can take advantage of that.
I'll tell you what, there's nothing that drives conversation like controversy. And especially in sports, usually the more controversial topics are going to get eyeballs. After we had 3 fights in 9 seconds in that first U.S.-Canada game, how much did that inflate the hype of the game last night? I would imagine quite a bit.
I've not had the Angel Reese meal at McDonald's yet, but I do see it when I drive by that they're advertising that. I'm like, man, that's enemy territory almost that you're promoting a Chicago Sky person in Indiana, but that is the state of the WNBA where these women are getting featured nationwide, which is good to see. So gotta love that.
I've seen the commercial for that like 1,800 times.
See, I don't think I've seen the commercial. I've just seen the still image of it, but I I don't know. It's like a bacon quarter pounder or something like that. I've not had it yet. I haven't had McDonald's in a little bit. But maybe there's a Caitlin Clark burger coming soon. We'll see. I don't know. I did see the shoes she had, the Kobe 8s or whatever they are. Those looked actually pretty cool. But that's for another topic. Coming up next, though, we're going to talk some IU. Get IU Purdue on Sunday afternoon. Is it a big game in Zach Osterman's eyes? Greg Rakestraw didn't think so. I think it is. We'll see what Zach's thoughts are. It's the Fan Morning Show on this Friday morning, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Definitely the most epic of songs, I would say, that Corbin has played this morning with Canadian flair. Celine Dion bringing the house down, and along with the Titanic back in 1998. My wife loves Celine Dion. I've never really understood it. I get it. She's got some good songs. All her songs are like 8 minutes long, though. I'm like, is this Metallica? What are we doing here? Celine, cut it to like 4.5. Let's cut it down a little bit, time-wise, please. We have some breaking news in the baseball world. Hold on to your butts here. The Yankees have announced that they're amending their facial hair policy and will allow players and uniform personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. Whoa! Hold on to your butts, guys. 2025 came calling. George Steinbrenner probably rolling in his grave as Hal Steinbrenner, his son, announces those changes. So, man, about to see some facially well-groomed Yankees all of a sudden down in Florida.
It's nothing that getting old George Calzone can't fix, right? You a Seinfeld guy?
Oh, yeah, of
good.
course.
Very good.
Of course.
George!
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. That's the big news of the morning. We will also talk to Zach Osterman of the Indy Star in just a matter of minutes. We'll get his thoughts on the Purdue IU game on Sunday and just the levels of, what's it mean to IU? Where are we at on the Mike Woodson head coaching search and whatnot? I haven't heard much as of late. It's been kind of quiet all of a sudden, whereas last week we were getting a lot of rumors of who might be available. Brad Stevens, obviously not coming here, but it'll be interesting to see if there's any development there because I've not heard much in this past week or so. So Zach Osterman has his ears to the ground usually. We'll see if he's got any nuggets he can lay on us as far as the head coaching search for Indiana.
Well, other than they're bringing in the same search firm that helped bring in Curt Cignetti from James Madison, and obviously that hit well in football, but basketball has been a little controversial dating back to getting the financials to get rid of Archie Miller, bringing in the IU guy and Mike Woods. I mean, that was the huge thing of the last hire, right, Mark? I mean, the huge thing of the last hire is we need somebody that understands this program.
Oh, yeah.
We need somebody that can associate themselves with the national championships.
Can't be anybody else.
We need somebody that understands how Indiana basketball works. Look how that worked out for you.
Yeah.
It's getting to a point where it's a teeter-totter, right? Because now, if Dusty May is your guy, I mean, Dusty May is closer to age of Archie Miller, and Dusty May is in his first season at Michigan. Of course, he had the terrific run at Florida Atlantic, but I mean, how much time are you going to give this guy? How much time are you going to give this guy just because he's a former IU manager under Bob Knight? Does that mean he gets a little bit of extra window? Because folks weren't happy with Mike Woodson from the start.
Nope.
Folks weren't happy with Archie Miller from the start. The expectations are asinine at times. So how much time do you give Dusty May if he's the guy?
Yeah, I mean, you want to turn the program around, but exactly how much rope are you giving this guy that's coming in to turn around this program? Because obviously you want to see results. The fan base is starving for some results, but they also have to get their own, guys in the system, recruit, all that. Who's going to hit the transfer portal and whatnot? There's a lot of questions going on down at IU, so be curious to see if Zach Osterman has any new names for us. Who does IU fans want? Brad Stevens has already declined. He said, "Thank you, I'm staying in Boston. No, thank you." But is it Dusty May? Is he now moved up to number one now that Brad Stevens has moved off? Shaka Smart, is there interest there? I don't know where we're at. Bruce Pearl's name has been associated. I don't know if any IU fans want. Chris Beard has been out there, but I think Zach had it last week that he kind of, or no, it was Jeff Rabjohn said that he doesn't think that IU is going to be interested in Chris Beard because of his off-court
there's some baggage there. I mean, Mark, I'm going straight to LA. I think if you're not able to get Dusty May, Mick Cronin's got to be your guy. Mick Cronin went to a Final Four here in 2021 and was in Indianapolis for 2 months in the same hotel. I remember talking with Mike Lewis, the current head coach at Ball State, about that. Mike Lewis was in the same hotel room for a month and a half in the middle of this bubble. I think Mick Cronin's your guy because he's had enough of LA. He's a terrific coach. He got UCLA back to a Final Four where you could argue the expectations are as crazy in LA as they are in Bloomington. And he got them to a Final Four and is now taking heat because his players are lazy. You watch UCLA play. That was one of the laziest teams at the start of the year. Now, Cronin's got them bought in a little bit more because he threw them to the wolves in his press conferences. But it seems to be that Mick Cronin is not exactly happy in LA. You get him to Bloomington. He had major success at Cincinnati. And he wears a suit to coach, which is something I look for.
Jeff Rabjohn's mentioned yesterday, Indiana's hired a search firm to assist in the hiring of a new basketball coach. The same search firm that was used to hire Curt Cignetti on the football side. So you hear search firm, as a fan, you're probably like, oh, no. Why don't we stick with the guys who are making these decisions? But, hey, if the search firm landed you on Curt Cignetti, I don't know too many IU fans that are going to be too hurt that same search firm is in the basketball world now.
Right, but does that mean that search firm is looking for a non-Dusty May? Because Curt Cignetti coming from James Madison.
That's true.
I mean, does that mean the search firm is not looking for those, no disrespect to Curt Cignetti, but he did not come from a blue blood program.
Right. Turning over every rock, though. So maybe that's how
right.
they found him.
That's right.
They did their due diligence, and they found this guy at JMU, and they're like, hey, I think he can coach some football in Indiana.
I don't think there's anybody out there that would. Now, we mentioned the baggage on Chris Beard. It's not exactly the same. I'm talking about baggage here where there has been on-court controversy in how they have coached their team and how they have gone about, running organizations in the past. I don't think there's anybody other than a May that would have some previous baggage.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. We have Zach Osterman joining us just shortly. Shout out to Scott, by the way, our winner for the Butler women and UConn tickets on Saturday afternoon. So have fun at that game because that is going to be a hell of a ticket. That's a hell of a game tomorrow at 4:30 out at Hinkle Fieldhouse. But joining us right now on the Payless Liquors hotline, you read his work on the Indy Star. He covers Indiana Hoosiers, all things Indiana Hoosiers, basketball, football, everything. He is Zach Osterman, and he joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline this morning. Good morning, Zach. How you doing? How was the school drop-off?
Oh, it's cold. It's cold.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, walking out in the middle of the night to come to this job, you're kind of like, oh, my God, what are we doing here and everything like that. But it looks like we're going to hit the 50s next week, so that we're almost there. We can see the forest through the trees, so we're getting there, Zach. We were just talking about it, Brendan and I. Been kind of quiet on the head coaching front. I feel like we got some names associated last week that could be involved. Brad Stevens took his name out of the hat. Where are we at on this head coaching search for Mike Woodson's successor? Have we gotten any developments since last week?
I don't think many. What I said to somebody earlier this week was that if you compare the process that ultimately led Indiana to Kirk Cignetti, I think by and large we are still in the sort of build-up period behind the scenes before Tom Allen was fired, where Scott Dolson was going through kind of a forensic analysis of, what's made his program successful, what's made similar programs successful, what's the sort of rubric against which we're going to grade, any potential interview or any potential coach that we interview. So I think that really that's probably more where things are right now. I think you're going to start to see more pieces put into place, like the engagement of a search firm. Last time it was turnkey. I believe it probably will be again, because that's going to allow you the ability to kind of work more discreetly once it is time to start contacting representation agents and really start kind of building out an actual candidate list. But I think, for the moment, Indiana wants to be discreet because Indiana doesn't want to distract from the season ongoing. And Indiana also recognizes that anyone that it would want to talk to about the job is probably working right now. And quite frankly, if you're Indiana or anybody, you probably don't want to talk to a coach that's willing to talk to you while they are in the midst of their season. So the point is, I think we're still very much kind of in the early stages. And what's obviously unusual about this is just the timing and the fact that normally when a coaching change is made, it all happens over a more compressed period of time. It's not usual that you have the sort of certainty of the change coming mid-season the way Indiana ultimately did. And so there's going to be a lot of attention, I understand, and a lot of sort of anxiety within the fan base and interest and probably excitement too. But this is just by its nature going to be a relatively sort of downtime in the search.
Hey, Zach, it's Brendan. You referenced the very public divorce that IU basketball and Mike Woodson are still experiencing. And I guess the same could be said about even the Archie Miller departure and raising the millions of dollars to pay his buyout. When you're looking at candidates cross-country, in your mind, does the public effect of how the last two coaches have gone, and I guess are going still, does that deter anybody from potentially looking at the job?
I mean, maybe. I think there's always just generally going to be a feeling of, there's always a balance with any job of risk versus reward. And coaches, there will probably be coaches that will look at it and say the expectations are high there. There's probably a bit of a law of diminishing returns in terms of, coaches. Each coach has kind of gotten a little bit less time than the previous coach because, there's just sort of patience is wearing a little bit more thin and a little bit more thin. But on the other hand, there are also going to be plenty of coaches that are going to look at something like Indiana and see opportunity, I suspect, rather than just sort of, I guess, headache or see, opportunities instead of obstacles, I guess, if we're looking for, some semi-clever turn of phrase. And I've said this every time this job is open, too. Any coach that might have some trepidation about taking a job like Indiana because of the pressure, because of the expectations, because of the scrutiny, is probably not a coach Indiana would want to hire anyway, because that coach probably just would not come equipped for what the job is going to take.
Zach Osterman of the IndyStar joining us on the Fan Morning Show on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Zach, I'm going to play a game with you. I'm going to see if you're a willing participant. If you're not, we're not going to hold you to this answer if you give it to us. If I'm giving you Mick Cronin, Dusty May, and Scott Drew in one group and the field in the other, where are you going as far as who IU ends up with as their next head coach?
Probably a 51-49 proposition. If I'm just hedging my bets, I guess I'd probably take the field, but let's put it this way, and I'm not much of a gambler except when I'm betting against Liverpool to make myself feel better if they lose. That's probably not a bet I would take, if you know what I'm saying. Like, that's probably one I would just bypass because it is so close that I'm just not sure. But again, I say that on what is today, February 21st. Like, so much is going to start changing in this in a very short space of time. We're just probably 3 weeks or so away from reaching that space of time. So I would probably, with those three names specifically, I guess I would shade the field, but I would probably just recommend against placing that bet at all.
All right. Well, we're not going to hold you to it regardless of that. Zach Osterman of the IndyStar joining us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. I do want to talk about the game on Sunday because there's a game on Sunday aside from just all this head coaching search talk. IU hosting Purdue on Sunday at Assembly Hall. Mike Woodson's last game against Purdue. Is this a big game for both teams? I feel like it is. Greg Rakestraw, who had joined us earlier, did not think it was a big game, but I think both teams, it's kind of odd to have both teams limping into the game. IU obviously dropped 6 of 7. Purdue has dropped 3 in a row. The ranked Big Ten teams. What are your thoughts on Sunday as we enter this game?
I think it is a big game for both teams. I think from Purdue's perspective, they were very much in the thick of the Big Ten title race, and they've kind of come crashing out of it. That's not to say they can't get back in it, but there's always I'm always sort of curious, like, how a team handles it when sort of, very suddenly their primary sort of ambition or aim for the season is just kind of taken away from them. And listen, those were 3 tough games. It's not like Purdue fell on its face, but still they did lose all 3, and they are, kind of firmly out of the Big Ten race now for the first time in 3 years or whatever it's been. How do they kind of pick themselves up in a tough environment? It'll be a tough environment. It's Assembly Hall. It's Purdue on a Sunday afternoon. And then from Indiana's perspective, I think I called this high noon for Indiana's sort of hopes of putting together a run here to the NCAA tournament. I think tangibly, Indiana's got to have quad 1 wins. The Ohio State game at home at the end of the season is really sort of teetering on the brink of a quad 2 at this point, if it's not already. I haven't seen the net rankings this morning. The Penn State road win, which had held up for so long as a quad 1, is in the same sort of quad 1 bubble position because Penn State has sank so low this season. They actually were out of the top 75 and then jumped back in because of the way they beat, who was it they beat the other day? Somebody unexpected, I think Nebraska. But the point is, Indiana's got to add some quad 1 wins here, and Purdue at home, as good as Purdue is, as fierce as the rivalry is just a more practical aim than Oregon on the road. And those are the only 2 games that Indiana's got on the schedule right now. The rest of the way that it can guarantee are quad 1s. And so tangibly, I think Indiana's really got to find a way to winning this game if it wants to feel like it's in genuine control of its, sort of its own destiny, its own, NCAA tournament resume and path down the stretch here. And then there's also, I think, a bit of an intangible element too, which is, Indiana lost 6 of 7. Then it won at Michigan State, and it felt like, okay, maybe this is a bit of a line in the sand moment. They're digging their heels in. They're pushing back. Then they come home and they lose a winnable game against a good UCLA team. Again, another quad one opportunity that slips away, another close loss. You lose this Purdue game, I think intangibly you also start to feel like maybe this is just the pattern of the season, I guess, and you start to maybe get to a place where guys just start to feel like they're swimming, they're swimming too hard upstream, basically. And so I think, for me anyway, I think at least in terms of the course of these two teams' seasons, I think this is a really important game.
To talk about almost diamond in the rough here, Zach, Luke Goody has been spectacular, especially over the last 34 minutes or more in 4 of his last 5 games. Had a great game at Mackey Arena the last time these two met. Just looking at least for you, your thoughts on him before the season for what he was going to be and now, how do those things correlate? Because he has really stepped up.
I mean, I thought he was going to be an important piece for Indiana. I thought he was an important voice for Indiana. It was, and obviously, time has not been sort of kind to this assessment, but I thought it was important when Goody, kind of was the one banging this drum in the preseason saying, listen, I've played on some good teams in Illinois, and this team's as good as any team I've played. I think you have a lot of Indiana, sort of returning players that have had success at IU, but maybe have not known success at the wider scale in college sports. And Goody had, or college basketball, and Goody had. He'd won, I think a Big Ten title in Illinois. I know he'd won a Big Ten tournament. They've been to the Elite Eight last year. And you also had a guy who I think, even though he was a transfer, he could talk very credibly about, what it means to play for Indiana. His dad played football in Indiana. His uncle's Trent Green. Like there's a genuine level of pride there. But it as this season has unfolded, I think where he's become even more important is kind of being that voice that's tried to hold everybody together and has tried to, sort of say, if we're going to have to sort of pull ourselves up by our boots and, sort of rage against the dying light here, then we're going to do it. And I'm going to be one of the ones that steps up and leads the way. And then obviously, if you want to talk about what he's provided on the court, I mean, I think he's been a really important sort of balancing piece for this team. He rebounds the ball well for his position and his size. Obviously, he shoots it very well, not just from 3, but I think his mid-range game has been really useful for Indiana this season. He makes hustle plays. I think he's been you feel like to the naked eye, and I haven't looked at like the plus minus lately, but you certainly feel like to the naked eye when you look at him and you look at his numbers and you look at the way he's played, you feel like Indiana is just a better team when Luke Goody's on the floor. And I think that is something, I think that is an assessment Mike Woodson has come to agree with as the season has gone on based on the way he's kind of continued to use Luke Goody. And if there is going to be sort of a last-ditch push here for an at-large berth in the NCAA tournament, I think he's going to play a big role in it.
Zach, we always appreciate the time. Be careful on those Liverpool bets, and I hope you didn't bet Team USA on the money line in the Four Nations last night.
I have never betted hockey, and I don't think I ever will.
Oh, that's a safe bet.
But
save your money. Save it for Liverpool. Save for another heartbreak, all right?
Sounds good.
Zach, appreciate the time as always. Again, you can check all of Zach's work out at the Indy Star. We always appreciate him joining us on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Have a great weekend, Zach. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me as always. You guys too.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Coming up, we've got a freebie Friday pop quiz coming up. I've also got some more thoughts regarding the Pacers, the Colts, some NBA big picture thoughts. We'll see if we can fit it all in this final 30 or 40 minutes. Before all that, though, we've got a morning check down to get to. Lead local. That's what they teach you in radio. Lead local if you can. So we're going to start there. Pacers, 127-113 winners over the Memphis Grizzlies last night. Miles Turner returned to the lineup. 7 Pacers in double figures. 17 points, 10 boards, 7 blocks for Miles Turner. It was welcome to see him back in the lineup. He obviously gave a boost to the scoring and the defense. After the game, Turner talked about his first game back.
It was a little difficult at first. You're trying to find your legs, mentally, and you miss a few shots and you kind of get down on yourself. But I got to give a lot of credit to literally everybody on the bench. I kind of started to get in my own head a little bit, and everybody says, yo, keep shooting. You're 40% shooter for a reason. Shoot the ball. From the coaching staff down to the end of the bench. Everybody encouraged me to keep shooting. So, it really kind of picked up my own spirit, and, I knew I needed to lock in, in that second quarter, and I was able to do just that.
So many games off, Turner admitted after the game he needs to get back into game shape.
I was gassed, bro. I'm not going to lie. I think that it's kind of a mind over matter. I think we've been doing this long enough to know that, if you're in between the four lines, don't nobody care how you feel. So, I was able to turn myself up to another level. I think I just kind of put it all to the fact that I knew we had 2 days to rest and just leave it all out on the floor. So, it wasn't easy, but, it's, we don't get paid to go out there and do it easy.
Another solid effort off the bench from Bennedict Mathurin. He had 16 points. Obi Toppin with 12. Any thoughts from you, Brendan, of the game that we haven't touched on this morning?
No, nothing new. It was refreshing to see how they responded from adversity, going 1 for 10 to start the game from 3. Miles really didn't have it early in that first quarter, 0 for 4 on threes, 6 minutes in. You get a 3 from Ben Mathurin to reset the pace. TJ McConnell hit a 3-pointer. That really gave the bench some juice. And then the second quarter with 50 points, man. And then what you did defensively as well. Zach Edey made that 3 early, only finished with 5 points on the night. You kept Ja Morant at bay. Desmond Bane had the best game among any Grizzly. So, again, well done when it comes to the game plan, and you start this 4-game stretch strong after the break where you're going to need at least 2 of these. So, if you can go out and take 3 of 4, I think you're in business, Mark Dykton.
Yeah, Pacers got a couple days off, probably get on the practice floor today and tomorrow before they have back-to-back starting on Sunday when they host the LA Clippers, and then Monday against Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Some powerhouses coming to Gainbridge these next couple of games.
And he's not bringing his horses.
No horses there. On the ice last night out at the TD Garden in Boston was the Four Nations Championship. We were locked in. Canada topped the United States 3-2 in overtime, courtesy of Connor McDavid.
Matthews, one of the best in the league. McDavid under 50% for the regular season. But he won 12 out of 14 in their opener, and he won that one and got a shot off. Centering pass, McDavid scores! Connor McDavid wins it for Canada!
Friend of the show, Sean McDonough, on the call there on ESPN. We said it all. What a game. It was a thriller. Connor McDavid, of course, was the guy that had the stick that put the puck in the net there. Both goalies made some phenomenal saves down the stretch. I know you were locked in just like I was. We had Corbin singing the Canadian national anthem at some point in his house. So, yeah, thrilling night.
Yeah, I mean, I had never realized Corbin does have the Canadian tuxedo on. He's got the jean jacket on.
Yep.
But no, actually, so on the McDonough call, that was such a pros call because actually, and unfortunately for the U.S., it was Austin Matthews that blew the coverage in the slot, which is the middle of the offensive zone. For those not familiar with hockey, it's the area of the offensive zone between the 2 big circles. Austin Matthews lost the faceoff, which Sean referenced. Even though Austin's one of the best in the league, Connor McDavid won it back. And then Matthews blew the coverage because he skated to the wall to chase the faceoff loss. Mm-hmm. And then Connor McDavid positioned himself there in the slot and only needed was one pass to put it away. So great call by Sean. He set that up perfect.
It's almost like a passing of the torch to Crosby to McDavid. That was...
Oh, no question. I mean, 87 to 97. And, Sidney Crosby's the captain. He's the guy that raised the trophy. Obviously, it's not a cup for this one, but yeah, I mean, bummer if you're a U.S. fan, but again, the winner of all of this is the game of hockey. I think heading into the Olympics next year, heading into the World Cup of Hockey in 2028, and knowing that the Stanley Cup playoffs are upcoming, you got some eyeballs now in the sport, you're going to make a lot of new fans.
Couldn't have asked for more if you're the NHL. You got a great game between 2 great teams, and it was a thriller from beginning to end right there. Corbin, Greg Rickshaw makes some Saturday Night Live references. Corbin, not so much an SNL guy. He's more of an SCTV guy. Does that fall on deaf ears? Second City Television, Canadian show. Forget it. John Candy.
I got nothing there even.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry.
I feel like the oldest man in the room. I probably am right now.
Well, you are. So.
Catherine O'Hara, Rick Moranis. Come on now. Good Lord. All right, hit the swoosh, Corbin. Good God.
Is that his official name?
Would get that reference. That Greg Rigshaw would get that SCTV reference for sure. College hoops quiet out there, but Butler UConn women host the UConn women at Hinkle on Saturday. We gave away tickets a little bit earlier in the show. That's at 4:30. The Butler men on the court, they visit DePaul on Saturday afternoon. And then Purdue IU, we've talked about it all day. They take place at Assembly Hall 1 7:30 on Sunday. Coming up on the other side, we'll talk some more sports, talk some SCTV, and maybe some Saturday Night Live references. And we've got a Freebie Friday pop quiz coming up before the end of the show. It's the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykton, Brendan King, Corbin Lingenfelter, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Time before we got some Nickelback this morning.
I hope that you have seen the look at this graph meme.
Yep.
Look at this graph.
Uh-huh.
It's one of the best.
Yeah. I haven't heard a new Nickelback song in quite a while now. I don't know if they're taking a hiatus or whatever, but
I know they were touring. You know what?
They?
I was never one that trashed them.
Mm-hmm.
They have fine music. It's fine.
It always interested me that, like, people said, well, Nickelback sucks. And I'm like, well, someone's buying these albums. Someone is. So who's lying here?
Again, I mean, there's so much worse music out there today. I never understood the beef people had with them, but I would go to their a live show for them. You kidding me? At Ruoff with a giant beer, listening to Nickelback?
as a hard rock fan, like I was always impressed the other bands that would join Nickelback on tour, whether it was co-headlining or just like openers. They'd have some pretty big names. They had Bush a few times. They had Weezer. They had, I believe it was Seether and a couple other bands where I'm like, these are pretty big acts that are opening for Nickelback. That's kind of interesting how they were making that happen there. So I haven't seen Nickelback in a while. I don't think I've heard a new Nickelback song in quite a bit, so I don't know what's going on.
New music, I don't think so, but tell you what,
hits, I guess.
If they ever get a spot at Wrigley, we're going. You and me.
Okay. I wanted to go this last summer when they had it was Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, and I think it was Rancid or something.
I've heard I've heard that was quite the night at Wrigley.
Yeah.
There's some characters at Wrigley that night. I'm sure.
I don't doubt it. Wrigleyville was probably hopping.
Well, and obviously they have the ushers and the poor Wrigley ushers. A lot of them are like 70 or 80 years old, and you're like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, they have had some better concerts lately. I think Jelly Roll and Post Malone are coming this summer. I'd be down for that as well.
Yeah, and then a couple years they had Dead and Company a couple years ago with John Mayer. That was cool. Mm-hmm. So
the best concert I ever went to was actually at Wrigley. It was the Foo Fighters, and they opened at Wrigley Field. This was back in, it was almost 10 years ago already. Now I'm thinking, I think it was 2016. But Foo Fighters, Taylor Hawkins was still around and everything like that. That was a hell of a show. There was like 3 hours of the Foo Fighters just playing some great music and just in Wrigley Field. I was a happy boy that night.
Do you remember your first concert?
Yes, I won. I originally my first concert was going to be Korn. This tells you where I was at is in a phase back in the. It was supposed to be Korn. I was going to see Korn at like the Allstate Arena in Chicago, and a week earlier, I had won free tickets on the now defunct Q101 in Chicago, the alternative radio station. But I called in randomly. I think I was requesting a song, and I requested a song, and the guy said, "Do you want free tickets to a show?" And I said, "Sure." And so it ended up being like a week earlier, and it was free tickets to see Saliva. There's a name from way back in the way.
Yep.
Saliva, Theory of a Dead Man, and Audio Vent at the House of Blues.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had my dad bring me and a buddy down there because I was not of age to drive downtown. I sure as hell wasn't going to make my first venture downtown, with a permit or anything. He drove us down. He's like, he worked downtown. He's like, I'll go in the office and hang out and stuff. So we saw that group, and that was the first concert. So yeah, a random first concert because that was not intentionally going to be my first concert.
It is a random first concert. Mine is legendary. I was really little. I saw the Baja Men, Who Let the Dogs Out.
Oh my God!
Who Let the Dogs and Move It Like This?
What songs did they play?
Who Let the Dogs Out and Move It Like This is all I can remember.
Who got the move it? Was that the song?
No, can you move it like this?
Oh,
I can shake it like that. I think they legitimately have two songs. I will say, though, arguably the best concert I've ever been to was 4 steps outside our door. 21 Pilots before the 2022 National Championship game between Bama and Georgia here. They had 21 Pilots. It was freezing. It was like the weather we're currently having. It was in the teens. But the circle was packed. It was nuts. They put on a great show. 21 Pilots, they were like shirtless for half the time. It was like, these guys are hardcore. It was a heck of a show.
That's
heck
insane.
of a show.
I'm not getting over the Baja Men. What year was that?
Oh, I was little. I think it was.
I thought that was like 10 years ago or something, or whatever it was. I thought you went as an adult to see
Baja
Men.
No. First concert, I think my mom brought me to, you know what it was? It was the Taste of Chicago.
Oh, there you go.
It was the Taste of Chicago. My mom brought me up there, and the Baja Men had a show. And Who Let the Dogs Out was like at its peak. I mean, that was like 2001.
I got food poisoning from the Taste of Chicago. I had a lobster roll, which was probably a mistake. And
where are they flying in that lobster from? They didn't get it from Lake Michigan, Mark.
I had to take the train from downtown back to my car, and that was
goodness.
There's no toilet. Let's just say there's no toilets on those trains, or at least there weren't back in the day. That was a rough.
Well, that same
go.
train car today has a stain on the seat. Thanks, Mark Titan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Corbin, your first concert?
Jason Aldean when I was 20 years old.
Look at that. That's a big
That wasn't
name
that
right
long
there.
ago.
That was 5 years ago.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say you're still a spring chicken.
Where was that at? Was that out downtown?
That was at Ruoff.
Ruoff, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. What was the worst concert you've been to?
Oh,
well, I've only been to 2.
Okay, so
the other one was terrible.
No, that one was actually the worst one because I didn't realize how much auto-tune Kane Brown actually uses in his country music.
Gotcha.
So he's fake.
Best one was Justin Moore. He had Lainey Wilson as his pre-show. That was before she was big. And then he also had Tracy Lawrence with him, which was huge.
Interesting. Your worst concert?
I don't know if I have a worst.
I don't know how we got here.
I've never really gone to a show that I hated, but another memorable one, freshman year at Butler. Butler every single year does this thing called Butler Palooza, where every August they'll bring in a musical act for the students during Welcome Week. My freshman year was the best of my 4-year tenure. They brought in B.O.B., the rapper. Like Nothing on You, so good. It was excellent. So I remember walking out of my freshman year dorm. We went to a party before the concert, show up, and it was a heck of a show. So that was a memorable night freshman year at college.
Interesting. Well,
you got a worst one?
I'm trying to think. There's one now, especially these days, that I enjoyed at the time, but now looking back, it was problematic after some of the headlines people were making. Buddy and I saw Kanye West at the United Center, and we saw his opener was Rihanna, and she was outstanding.
Opener?
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
This was Umbrella had just come out.
So it's like 2006?
Yeah, something. It was the Glow in the Dark tour or something, but it was Kanye West. Rihanna was the opener, and it was also Lupe Fiasco and NERD.
Oh, I love Lupe.
Yeah, Rihanna was incredible. She was gorgeous, obviously, but also the only problematic thing was that at the time she was dating Chris Brown, and Chris Brown unannounced came out and did like a backflip during one of her songs. And like a few weeks later was when the domestic violence stuff happened. So that wasn't
great.
Problematic. And obviously Kanye's been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons as of late. So it was a good concert at the time, but looking back, I'm like, oh boy.
I like to separate those memories. That's Ye now.
Yeah.
Kanye holds a special place in my heart. Ye is not a good guy. Ye is not a nice person.
I'll accept that. I would like to play some Kanye music at times for rejoiners.
Yeah, exactly.
But then I'm like,
Different
I don't
guy.
know if I should these days. I don't know if that's PC or not. I don't know what I should do here. So I kind of move away from that. But that was not a bad concert, but it's problematic nowadays. So we'll see.
Very problematic now. But that's okay. I hope it was cool.
Well, I don't know how we got down this concert rabbit hole.
I'm cool with it.
While we're talking concerts, we might as well talk about Bret Michaels and the All-American Rejects. That is your Carb Day concert. That announcement came courtesy of Doug Bowles on JMV yesterday's show. So their concert has been announced. Snake Pit has also been announced. I haven't heard the Legends Day concerts yet. I'm sure we'll get those as a later date as well. So we went down the concert rabbit hole unintentionally. We didn't talk any sports right there. Maybe a good thing for some people. But coming up next, though, we will talk some sports. On top of that, we'll also give away a Jiffy Lube oil change. It's pop quiz time. It is Freebie Friday, which means go 5 for 5, go 0 for 5, do anything in between. You get a Jiffy Lube oil change. 317-239-1070 is the phone number. It's the Fan Morning Show. Mark Dykton, Brendan King, Corbin Lingenfelter one last time on the other side. I've heard some truly awful things in this break. Scotty, first of all, came in and said that the Grizzlies were in their throwback Memphis Sounds jerseys, and they went half measure with it. They didn't go all the way. And he said because the names on the back of the jerseys were just arch, and they weren't script like was what they were in the throwbacks. And if you're going to do the throwbacks, go all the way. Do it right, Nike. Come on. Get it together. And then I heard the dad joke of most dad jokes on my Twitter as Big Glenn, who's a avid listener, thank you, Big Glenn, chimed in and says, you know what concert costs 45 cents? 50 Cent with Nickelback. I said, that's the most dad joke I've heard all week.
But
Brendan landed one earlier. I'm like, these people with no kids have all the dad jokes. I feel like I've been put to shame this week. Unbelievable. So I don't know how we went down the concert rabbit hole in the last segment. We'll try to recover there. We got the pop quiz, a theme pop quiz from Scotty today as well, where this is one of two answers. You really have a 50-50 shot of getting these right. It's of all. I won't spoil the theme yet, but basically you have a 50-50 shot in every answer to get it. Before we do get to a pop quiz, which is a freebie Friday, again, 317-239-1070 if you want to try to land that Jiffy Lube oil change. Any final thoughts before we head into the sports weekend? I know you're traveling. If you want to give the folks who haven't heard where you're heading, and then any sports thoughts heading into the weekend.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. And secondly, thanks for welcoming me back into the studio the last couple of days.
It's been a pleasure. You also shoved me out of the way when I tried to padlock the door. No, it's been a pleasure these last two shows.
No, it's been great, and I love you guys, and it's always an honor to be back in the studio, and, we've had some great times doing this. But, yeah, I mean, to be candid here, I mean, a big reason of why, I took a step away, I guess, from sports radio in a way was to pursue a play-by-play career. I got my first national cable TV game coming up on Sunday down in Atlanta. Georgia Tech women taking on Florida State on the CW, 4 o'clock Sunday. Hope you guys can tune in.
You're going to kill it like you always do with everything. Plus, you're going to head out to Arizona, too, which I'm insanely jealous for, to get some Cubs.
Excited to see the sun. I mean, I might be more excited to see the sun than to do the game.
Well, let us tell the sun we miss it, and we wouldn't mind seeing it around here, these parts every once in a while. So Brendan's going to be busy this weekend. Kevin will be back on Monday. I have no idea what the lineup for the show is the rest of next week. But we have the NFL Scouting Combine coming to town. We'll have live shows there Tuesday through Friday next week. I think we're the only live show that'll be out there for the full Tuesday through Friday. Jake and JMV will both be out there, but in different capacities. But we'll be out there 4 of the next 5 shows, which is going to be fun there. Before we dive into a pop quiz, Pacers got the 127-113 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Again, the Memphis Sounds jerseys do it all the way right next time, Nike. And then Team USA fell short against Canada in the Four Nations Championship. 3-2, Connor McDavid, your game winner in overtime there. All right, it is pop quiz time. Again, themed pop quiz. 317-239-1070 if you want to try to get a last-second Hail Mary caller in. I do believe we have full phone lines, though. Brendan, since you're about to hit the skies, why don't you let us know who would you like to take on air? Number 1 through 8.
Well, Florida State is the number 1 scoring team in the nation in women's college basketball, so I'll go with number 1.
Look at that. Nice tie-in.
That would be Brian.
Brian, good morning. How you doing, sir, on this Friday?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Have you made a commute out to work yet today? What's the weather like out there? Is it still bone chilling?
No, it's definitely still bone chilling, but no, not too bad out.
All right, Brian. It is a theme pop quiz today.
Hey, it's Ryan.
Oh, Ryan. I apologize. Sorry, Ryan.
Hey, it's all good.
Ryan, my brother's name, so I should get that right, is a theme pop quiz today. You have a 50-50 chance of getting all these. I will tell you right now. Theme pop quiz, Scotty says, will give you the name of a team, and you must tell us whether the team was a member of the American Basketball Association, a.k.a. the ABA of the 1960s and 70s, or the 2001 XFL. I don't know how Scotty came up with this idea on a Friday, but you have either ABA or XFL teams. You have to tell us which one it is, all right?
All right.
All right, Ryan, let's go at it. Number 1, this might be the shortest pop quiz of all time. San Diego Conquistadors, ABA or XFL?
Conquistadors. We'll go XFL.
Go ahead, Brendan.
Okay, Ryan, the Orlando...
We're not giving them any hints today.
Okay,
it's a 50-50 shot.
I just had to look at you. The Orlando Rage, XFL or ABA?
XFL.
Yeah, Rage is a very early 2000s sounding name.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
That doesn't really belong in the 1970s, does it, Scotty?
Sounds very Vince McMahon-esque. Ryan, Las Vegas Outlaws.
Outlaws. I'll go with XFL as well.
Good pick. All right, the Minnesota Muskies. The Muskies.
Muskies. I will go with XFL.
All right, and fifth one, this sounds like two NFL teams having a baby. The New Orleans Buccaneers.
ABA.
All right, good way to end it.
All right, Ryan, thank you for playing. Hang on. Corbin will get your information for the JMV oil change. Unfortunately, not a 5-for-5 effort, but Scotty coming up with this pop quiz on a Friday, that boggles my mind, where ABA and XFL came from. San Diego Conquistadors was actually ABA. He got that wrong. Orlando Rage, he was correct. XFL, Las Vegas Outlaws, also the XFL, and then the Minnesota Muskies and New Orleans Buccaneers, both ABA teams.
Yeah, the Muskies wouldn't be the most intimidating football, would they?
No, I can't imagine. Like as far as as nicknames,
we're
gonna
swim down the creek and score a touchdown on you.
We're gonna be a stinky fish. Yeah, New Orleans Buccaneers. That's also interesting because you think Saints and Tampa, like NFC South. So I don't know what that was about either.
Yeah. No, that's like you said. I mean, that's a baby waiting to happen.
So that might have been the shortest pop quiz of all time.
Yeah. So what do we do now?
We just talk sports for the next few minutes before we get out of here. So thank you to Ryan for calling. Thank you for joining us, by the way, all week long on the Fan Morning Show. I know it's been a pleasure for me and Brendan to team up together for the first time ever these last couple shows.
Yeah,
Again, Kevin will be back on Monday. We'll figure out the lineup as we go. But we'll be out at the Combine Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week. And obviously you have Jake and John to take you home the rest of the way on this Friday. Any final thoughts as far as what we haven't touched on? We talked Pacers beating the Grizzlies. We talked Four Nations Championship, obviously. Purdue IU, big one out in Assembly Hall on Sunday afternoon. Big one in Hinkle with the women of Butler taking on the women of UConn. And then the Combine next week. Got Brett Michaels All-American Rejects coming to town. And then Victor Wembanyama out for the season for the Spurs. We touched on that a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I feel bad for not only for Victor Wembanyama and Spurs fans, but just for NBA fans at all, because I feel like while the Spurs were kind of struggling, they made that big trade at the trade deadline, and you kind of wanted to see that tandem between Wembanyama and Fox kind of take off, and now you're going to just kind of throwing your hands up in the air like, well, what does this mean now? You're without Greg Popovich, now without Victor Wembanyama. That kind of stinks, especially heading out of the All-Star break. He seemed to be the only one really trying in that weekend, and now he's out with a blood clot in his right shoulder. Apparently going to make a full recovery by next season, but that is a concerning issue. I don't care whether you're an NBA player or just, Joe Schmo on the street.
No, all prayers up to Victor Wembanyama. That is a scary thing, and, at a young age, I feel like that's also quite rare, too. So hopefully he ends up being okay, and hopefully you can see him playing in Indianapolis next year. I think, Mark, where I want to leave it is actually talk a little bit about IU and Purdue.
Yeah, let's go. We need predictions, too, before we get out of here.
Yeah, that's cool, too. But if Dusty May is truly your guy in Bloomington, and that's who you're going after, I understand they're bringing in the national search firm. I understand it was the same firm that found Curt Cignetti. But if Dusty May is your guy, I'm a little nervous in Bloomington. Dusty May has made an early part of his career out of making runs in March with rosters that didn't necessarily stick out in October. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say Michigan's roster stuck out in October for that, what Dusty May was able to get in Ann Arbor. If I'm in Bloomington, I'm a little spooked that Michigan makes a little late season run here. And Michigan's able to get a little hot in March. Because if they do, why would Dusty May want to leave?
Right.
Why would he want to depart a roster that peaks at the right time? Now, that's still to be determined. And Michigan's schedule the rest of the way. Michigan State, Nebraska, Rutgers, Illinois, Maryland, and Michigan State again. There's no guarantees. But if I'm in Bloomington, I'm really nervous that Dusty May makes a run in Michigan. That can impact you going after him, because why would he want to leave something could be successful in Ann Arbor to take over what is just falling apart in Bloomington?
And where does that leave you then if you're IU, if that does happen, if that comes to fruition? Where does that go? Are you on now your third favorite candidate? Does that move up the board? Where does he fall if you're Scott Dolson then when it comes to making that decision? Because obviously Brad Stevens already took his name out of the hat. And if that happens, We have Dusty May. You'd have to think those guys are 1 and 2 at the top of the short list for the IU job. If both of those guys are not coming here, what does that say about your candidate pool? Does that raise up someone like a Mick Cronin out in UCLA? Or, will they consider Chris Beard a little more if that's the case? Or Scott Drew get a little more push? Does Bruce Pearl get his way and get on that short list? I'll be curious to see. We had Zach Osterman on earlier. He said if I gave him the choice of Mick Cronin, Dusty May, and Scott Drew or the field, he took the field. But he said it was a 51-49 just because he's hedging his bets there.
And
I don't blame him.
That's probably smart. That's probably smart. I don't know. I just, again, but also, if you're IU, the more you continue to spiral, if Dusty May is riding the roller coaster up and it's a slow ride up and IU continues to take the quick way down, I think the worse it gets to try and attract him here. Now, I don't know. I never spoken to Dusty May in my life, but just sensing of if he makes a run at the end of the season at Michigan, I wouldn't imagine he would enjoy taking the route down 69 down to Bloomington.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that trajectory happens where Michigan's rising and IU keeps falling.
Yeah, you got a pick, by the way?
Oh, yes. Give me Purdue. I think Purdue rights the ship against IU. IU, I mean, you could say you're playing for pride against Mike Woodson or whatever like that, but you've also had Mike Woodson with your team all year, and you haven't really played with pride much all season. So why would this be any different against your arch rival in Purdue? So I will take the Boilermakers to right the ship on Sunday. They've got a little more aspirations come tournament time, I think.
Have not seen a line, but if IU is anything more than +8, I will scoop that, and I will bet that IU would keep it close. They kept it close at Mackey. I feel like this is the first time in years that IU and Purdue actually match up. And if it is +8 or more, I will scoop that for the Indiana Hoosiers.
No line yet. Corbin, do you have a pick for Sunday?
I'm going actually Hoosiers because I think Goody's going to have a great game.
You can probably get some nice value there if that's the case. Well, it's a fun show. It's been a fun couple days. Again, Brendan King in the co-host chair. He's off to fly. Kevin will be flying back from Florida. He'll be back on Monday. Mark Dykton here, Corbin as well. It's been a fun week of shows. We'll be out at the Combine next week, Tuesday through Friday. Should be a lot of fun. Lots of stuff to dive into come Monday's show. We'll have IU Purdue. Obviously, the Pacers have already played their game against the Clippers. We'll recap that. We'll also preview the game against the Nuggets on Monday night. Lots to get into. Again, Four Nations was outstanding. I loved it. And thank you very much, Brendan. Again, thanks,
Mark.
for
Thanks,
swinging
boys.
in the
Appreciate
studios.
it.
It's been a good time. Have fun. I'm jealous. Have Chompies out in Arizona. It's a phenomenal breakfast bar.
Yeah, it is.
It is outstanding. Thank you also to Greg Rakestraw, Alan Karpick, and Zach Osterman joining us on this Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.